Long before recorded history, strange things were left behind. Massive stone structures with impossible precision, ancient texts describing flying beings from the sky, legends from every corner of the world speaking of visitors not of this earth. Some believe these are signs of Paleocontact, early encounters between humans and extraterrestrials. Could advanced beings have come here in the distant past? If so, what did they leave behind? And why did they come? Earth's story stretches back an incomprehensible amount of time, a staggering 4.5 billion years. For almost all of this immense duration, no human was present to witness or record events. Our existence as a species, Homo sapiens, is but a fleeting moment at the very end of this vast timeline. The history we learn in school, the chronicles of kings and empires, the rise and fall of civilizations, all of this accounts for only the last few thousand years. This tiny slipper of time, this brief recorded era, rests atop an enormous and mostly hidden foundation known as deep time. Understanding deep time is crucial to grasping the true scale of planetary and biological processes that shaped our world long before anyone wrote a word or built a city. It is a concept that challenges our intuitive sense of duration, as our lives are measured in decades, not millions or billions of years. The planet itself formed from a swirling cloud of dust and gas left over from the birth of our sun. This initial period was incredibly violent, with constant bombardments from asteroids and comets and intense volcanic activity. The surface was molten, a true primordial hellscape. Slowly, over hundreds of millions of years, the Earth began to cool. Water vapor, expelled from volcanoes and likely delivered by comets, condensed to form the first oceans. These early oceans, warm and rich in chemicals, became the cradle of life. The first single-celled organisms appeared perhaps 3.8 billion years ago, microscopic forms of life that thrived in conditions utterly hostile to anything alive today. These organisms, over unimaginable stretches of time, slowly began to alter the very atmosphere of the planet, primarily through photosynthesis. They released oxygen, a waste product for them but a vital gas for future complex life. This process, known as the Great Oxidation Event, was a slow burn, taking hundreds of millions of years to transform the atmosphere from one dominated by gases like methane and carbon dioxide to the oxygen-rich air we breathe today. This fundamental shift paved the way for more complex life forms. For billions of years, life on Earth remained microscopic. It was a world of bacteria and archaea, tiny powerhouses silently shaping the environment. Then, roughly 540 million years ago, something truly extraordinary happened: the Cambrian explosion. In a geological blink of an eye, an unprecedented diversification of a multicellular life occurred. Almost all major animal groups we know today, from mollusks to arthropods to early vertebrates, first appeared in the fossil record during this relatively short period. The reasons for this sudden burst of life are still debated, but it marked a profound turning point. From this point forward, the oceans teemed with bizarre and wonderful creatures, many of which are completely unlike anything alive today. The fossil record, though incomplete, provides tantalizing glimpses into these ancient marine ecosystems. Following the Cambrian explosion, life continued its relentless march, evolving and adapting to ever-changing planetary conditions. Major geological events, such as the shifting of continents driven by plate tectonics, dramatically reshaped the planet's surface. Supercontinents formed and broke apart multiple times, influencing ocean currents, climate patterns, and the distribution of life. Mountains rose and fell, seas advanced and retreated, creating and destroying habitats on a vast scale. Each of these geological transformations played a critical role in the ongoing story of life. Periods of intense volcanic activity would pump enormous amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, leading to warmer climates. Conversely, periods of glaciation would see ice sheets cover vast areas, altering sea levels and creating new challenges for survival. Life did not remain confined to the oceans forever. Roughly 400 million years ago, plants began to colonize land. This was a monumental leap as it required overcoming the challenges of desiccation and gravity. Early land plants were simple, but their success transformed terrestrial environments, providing food and habitat for other organisms. Soon after, arthropods such as early insects and spiders followed. Then, vertebrates emerged from the water, evolving limbs and lungs to navigate the terrestrial realm. The Carboniferous period, about 360 to 300 million years ago, was characterized by vast swamp forests that produced the coal deposits we mine today. This period saw the rise of large amphibians and early reptiles, signaling a greater independence from watery environments. The planet has also experienced several mass extinction events throughout its deep history. These are periods where a significant percentage of Earth's species suddenly vanish from the fossil record. The most severe, the Permian-Triassic extinction event around 252 million years ago, wiped out over 90% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. It was a cataclysm of unimaginable scale, likely caused by massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia, which released enormous amounts of greenhouse gases and triggered a cascade of environmental changes. Yet, life always bounced back, demonstrating an incredible resilience. New species emerged, filling the ecological niches left empty by the extinct. These extinctions are a stark reminder of the planet's dynamic and sometimes brutal nature, and how profoundly vulnerable life can be to sudden environmental shifts. One of the most famous eras in deep time is the Mesozoic era, often called the Age of Dinosaurs, which spanned from about 252 to 66 million years ago. During this time, dinosaurs dominated terrestrial ecosystems for over 160 million years. This is an incredible length of time, far longer than the entire existence of humanity. Different types of dinosaurs evolved and thrived, from the colossal long-necked sauropods to the formidable carnivorous theropods like Tyrannosaurus rex. Pterosaurs soared through the skies, and marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs ruled the seas. The climate during much of the Mesozoic was warmer than today, with higher sea levels and lush vegetation. This era came to an abrupt end with the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction event, approximately 66 million years ago. This event, most widely attributed to a massive asteroid impact in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, led to widespread environmental devastation and the demise of the non-avian dinosaurs, along with many other plant and animal groups. The extinction of the dinosaurs opened up new opportunities for mammals. Mammals had existed alongside dinosaurs for millions of years, but they were generally small and nocturnal. With the dominant reptiles gone, mammals rapidly diversified and evolved to fill the empty ecological roles. This ushered in the Cenozoic era, sometimes called the Age of Mammals, which continues to this day. Over the last 66 million years, mammals have evolved into an astonishing array of forms, from tiny shrews to massive whales, from bats to elephants. Birds, which are the direct descendants of avian dinosaurs, also flourished. The Cenozoic has seen significant climatic fluctuations, including cycles of glacial and interglacial periods, which have profoundly shaped landscapes and driven further evolution. Our own lineage, the hominins, diverged from other primates several million years ago in Africa. Early hominins like Australopithecus walked upright, a crucial adaptation. Over millions of years, different species of Homo evolved, developing larger brains, using tools, and eventually mastering fire. The development of complex language and symbolic thought marked another major turning point, distinguishing our species, Homo sapiens, from all others. We migrated out of Africa, spreading across the globe and encountering other hominin species like Neanderthals. The entirety of human recorded history, from the first written tablets to the digital age, fits into just the last few thousand years of this vast Cenozoic era. It is a testament to how recent our impact on the planet truly is, and how little we know of the billions of years that preceded us. The inherent limitations of our understanding of this unseen past are significant. We rely heavily on the fossil record, which is notoriously incomplete. Only a tiny fraction of organisms that have ever lived are preserved as fossils, and only a fraction of those have been discovered. The conditions for fossilization are very specific, meaning that soft-bodied creatures or organisms living in certain environments are rarely preserved. This creates significant gaps in our knowledge, like missing pages in an ancient book. Furthermore, Geological processes like erosion and subduction constantly destroy old rocks and the fossils they might contain, erasing parts of the record forever. Dating these ancient events and fossils requires sophisticated scientific techniques, often relying on radioactive decay, which provides estimates rather than exact dates. Beyond the fossil record, geology provides clues. The layers of rock beneath our feet are like chapters in Earth's history, each stratum telling a story of the environment in which it formed. But reading these chapters requires careful interpretation and reconstruction. The forces of plate tectonics, volcanism, and erosion continually reshape the Earth's surface, making it difficult to trace continuous geological narratives over vast periods. Ancient climates are reconstructed using proxies like ice cores, sediment layers, and tree rings, but these provide broad averages and cannot capture every nuance. Our understanding of ancient life also comes from molecular biology. By comparing the DNA of living organisms, scientists can infer their evolutionary relationships and estimate when different lineages diverge from common ancestors. This molecular clock provides another powerful tool for understanding deep time, but it too has its limitations and assumptions. Reconstructing ancient ecosystems, predator-prey relationships, and the subtle interactions between species requires piecing together many different lines of evidence, often leaving much to speculation. The concept of deep time also challenges our human perspective on rarity and commonality. Events that seem incredibly rare or impossible over a human lifespan become inevitable when viewed across millions or billions of years. Asteroid impacts, massive volcanic eruptions, dramatic climate shifts, and the emergence of entirely new forms of life are not anomalies, but rather recurring features of Earth's history. Understanding this long perspective can help us contextualize current environmental changes and the potential for future transformations. The very idea that conventional explanations might be scarce for certain periods in this vast unseen past is not surprising. When we consider the limited data, the destructive forces of time and geology, and the sheer antiquity of some events, it becomes clear that many chapters of Earth's story will forever remain shrouded in mystery. We are like detectives trying to reconstruct a complex crime scene with only a few scattered clues and a broken timeline. This inherent incompleteness of the record opens the door to various interpretations and alternative theories, especially when confronted with phenomena that seem to defy our current understanding of ancient capabilities or knowledge. The challenge is to differentiate between genuine puzzles and misinterpretations, and to approach the unknown with both a rigorous scientific inquiry and an open mind. The unseen past is a vast frontier of knowledge, and every new discovery, no matter how small, adds another piece to the immense puzzle of our planet's long and often hidden history. The history of humanity, as we typically understand it, is a tale told over the last few thousand years. It is a narrative of recorded events, of civilizations rising and falling, of innovations and conflicts that have shaped the world we know. Yet, beneath the surface of this familiar history lies a deeper, more enigmatic layer, a collection of ancient mysteries that defy easy explanation and challenge our conventional understanding of the past. These are the historical and archaeological enigmas that have puzzled scholars and fascinated the public for centuries, prompting questions about the true capabilities of ancient peoples, the origins of certain knowledge, and even the possibility of unknown influences. One of the most profound categories of ancient mysteries involves the construction of monumental structures. Across the globe, from the pyramids of Egypt to the megaliths of Stonehenge, and from the intricate stonework of the Inca Empire to the colossal Moai statues of Easter Island, these sites showcase engineering and organizational feats that seem extraordinary, if not impossible, for the technologies we attribute to their builders. The sheer scale of the materials used, often weighing many tons, and the precision with which they were cut, transported, and assembled continues to perplex. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. Built over 4,500 years ago, it remains a marvel of engineering. It consists of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 to 15 tons, with some granite blocks inside the king's chamber, weighing up to 80 tons. The precision of its construction is remarkable. Its sides are aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal points, and the base is incredibly level. How ancient Egyptians, supposedly with only copper tools, ropes and simple ramps, managed such a feat of quarrying, shaping, transporting and lifting these immense stones, while many conventional theories propose the use of vast labour forces and ingenious but simple methods, the exact techniques employed for the largest stones and the level of precision achieved still spark much discussion and speculation. Similarly, the stonework found in ancient Inca sites in Peru, such as Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu, and Ollantaytambo, presents an equally baffling mystery. Here, massive multi-sided stones are cut and fitted together with such incredible precision that not even a knife blade can be inserted between them. These blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, are often irregularly shaped, yet they interlock perfectly like puzzle pieces, creating walls that are highly resistant to earthquakes. The prevailing theory suggests that these stones were shaped through a laborious process of repeatedly grinding them against each other, possibly using sand and water. However, the sheer effort and time this would require, along with the consistent accuracy across vast structures, led many to question if a more efficient, yet currently unknown, method was employed. The exact tools used to achieve such precise cuts on hard stones like granite and diorite without leaving visible marks also remain largely hypothetical. On Easter Island, the famous Moai statues carved from volcanic rock stand as silent guardians. These colossal monolithic figures, some weighing over 75 tons, were moved significant distances across rough terrain from the quarry to their coastal platforms. The islanders possessed no beasts of burden, no wheels, and no sophisticated machinery. Theories abound involving ropes, logs, and large groups of people rocking the statues along, but none fully explain how such heavy objects were transported and then lifted upright onto platforms, particularly the largest ones. The logistics of feeding and organising the enormous workforce required for such an undertaking on a small isolated island also present a significant puzzle. Beyond physical structures, another category of ancient mystery revolves around the sudden appearance of advanced knowledge or technologies that seem out of place for their historical context. Ancient texts from various cultures describe concepts or possess astronomical understandings that appear to precede what we believe were their scientific capabilities. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a Roman shipwreck off the coast of Greece, is a prime example. This intricate bronze device, dating back to the 1st century BCE, is a complex astronomical calculator capable of predicting lunar and solar eclipses, planetary positions, and even the dates of athletic games like the Olympics. Its sophisticated gear train, far more complex than anything thought possible for its time, was not seen again in Europe until the clockworks of the 14th century. The discovery of this device forces a re-evaluation of Hellenistic Greek technological prowess, suggesting a level of mechanical understanding far beyond what was previously credited to them. The mystery deepens when considering that no other similar devices have been found from that period, making the Antikythera mechanism seem like an isolated anomaly. Who developed this technology, and why was it seemingly lost to history for over 1,000 years? Similarly, ancient maps present their own set of perplexing questions. The Piri-Reis map, compiled in 1513, is one of the most famous. It accurately depicts the coastlines of West Africa, South America, and even seemingly part of the coastline of Antarctica, long before Antarctica was officially discovered and thoroughly charted. The map also includes details that suggest knowledge of subglacial topography in Antarctica, which could only be known through seismic sounding or other advanced techniques not available until the 20th century. While some argue that the Antarctica on the map is merely a misinterpretation of South America or a hypothetical southern continent, others contend that it incorporates older source maps from unknown civilizations with highly advanced cartographic abilities. The question of what source maps Piri-Reis used and how they acquired such detailed and seemingly anachronistic geographical knowledge remains a source of fascination and debate. Another well-known enigma is the Baghdad Battery, also known as the Parthian Battery. Discovered in 1938 near Baghdad, it consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of an acidic agent. Dating back approximately 2,000 years, during the Parthian era, some researchers propose it was an ancient electrical battery, capable of generating a small voltage. While mainstream archaeology generally interprets it as a storage vessel for scrolls or a container for religious rituals, experiments have shown that a replica can indeed produce electricity, albeit weakly. If it was an ancient battery, its purpose and the extent of knowledge about electricity in that period are completely unknown, and no other similar devices have been found to confirm its widespread use. Beyond objects and structures, ancient texts and oral traditions also contain mysteries. Many cultures globally possess creation myths and origin stories that describe powerful beings or gods descending from the sky, sometimes bringing knowledge, technology, or civilization itself to early humans. The Sumerian civilization, considered one of the earliest complex societies, offers a rich array of such accounts. Their cuneiform tablets speak of the Anunnaki, beings who came to Earth from the heavens, influencing human development and granting knowledge. While these are often interpreted as metaphorical or mythological narratives, some find it curious how consistently these sky god narratives appear across diverse geographically separated cultures, from ancient Egypt to indigenous American tribes. The consistent theme of knowledge transfer from an external, non-human source is a compelling pattern for those who question conventional explanations. The sudden emergence of complex civilizations, seemingly without clear precursors, is another long-standing puzzle. Sumer, in Mesopotamia, is often cited as the cradle of civilization, appearing with fully developed writing systems, sophisticated irrigation, organized religion, and complex social structures seemingly without a long evolutionary path from simpler societies. While archaeological evidence does show a progression from earlier settlements, the speed and completeness of the transition to urbanized civilization in Sumer still impresses and mystifies historians. Some question if certain foundational elements were introduced or rapidly adopted under circumstances not fully understood through conventional archaeological lenses. The purpose of ancient sites also constitutes a mystery. Stonehenge, with its precise alignment to the solstices, is clearly an astronomical observatory or calendar, but its exact ritualistic or scientific function remains debated. Were these structures purely for religious ceremonies, or did they serve a deeper practical purpose in understanding the cosmos that goes beyond our current interpretations? The Nazca lines in Peru, vast geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, depict animals, plants, and geometric shapes. They're so large that they can only be fully appreciated from an aerial perspective. While theories range from astronomical calendars to pilgrimage routes or ritual paths, the idea that they were made as signals for beings in the sky, or for aerial observation, continues to captivate because of their unique design. The precision and knowledge encoded in some ancient calendars also raises questions. The Mayan calendar system, for instance, exhibits an astonishing degree of astronomical accuracy, predicting celestial events with remarkable precision, including very long cycles that span thousands of years. How did the Maya, without telescopes or modern computing, achieve such sophisticated astronomical observations and calculations? While their painstaking naked eye observations over centuries certainly played a role, the level of detail and predictive power in their calendrical system suggests a depth of understanding that is a subject of ongoing study and admiration. The Djed pillar in ancient Egypt, depicted in many hieroglyphs, has been interpreted by some as resembling an ancient electrical device, specifically a type of electrical insulator or even an arc lamp. While Egyptologists maintain its symbolic meaning as a representation of stability and the backbone of Osiris, the visual resemblance to modern electrical components has led to speculative theories about advanced knowledge of electricity in ancient Egypt, for which there is no direct conventional evidence. Many of these ancient mysteries persist not because archaeologists and historians have not tried to solve them, but because the available evidence is often incomplete, ambiguous, or open to multiple interpretations. The methodologies of archaeology and historical research rely on tangible proof, contextual understanding, and a logical progression of development. When faced with anomalies that do not fit neatly into established timelines or technological capabilities, conventional science typically seeks the most parsimonious explanation that adheres to known principles. This often involves attributing seemingly impossible feats to immense human labour, ingenious yet simple techniques that have been lost, or misinterpretations of the evidence. The human desire to understand our origins and the nature of our past is powerful. When conventional explanations fall short or seem inadequate, the door opens for alternative theories, some of which venture into the realm of the extraordinary. The existence of these ancient mysteries serves as a reminder that our understanding of the deep past is far from complete. There are gaps in the historical record, lost knowledge, and perhaps even phenomena that we are not yet equipped to understand or explain. These enigmas invite us to keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to remain open to the possibility that the story of our past may be richer and more complex than we currently comprehend. The allure of these mysteries lies not just in their existence, but in their continued power to spark curiosity and fuel the ongoing quest for knowledge about where we truly come from. The Paleocontact hypothesis, often referred to as ancient astronaut theory, proposes that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and influenced the development of early human civilizations. This idea is distinct from modern ufology, which focuses on contemporary sightings of unidentified flying objects and also differs from general theories about alien life in the universe. The Paleocontact hypothesis specifically posits a direct physical interaction between advanced alien visitors and ancient human societies, suggesting these interactions left behind discernible evidence in various forms. It is a concept that bridges archaeology, mythology, and the speculative possibility of extraterrestrial life. Central to the Paleocontact hypothesis is the idea that many ancient technological advancements, architectural marvels, religious beliefs, and cultural practices were not solely the product of human ingenuity, but were either inspired by, taught by, or directly aided by these extraterrestrial visitors. Proponents suggest that early humans, lacking the scientific and technological understanding to comprehend the advanced nature of these visitors, might have perceived them as gods, angels, or divine beings descending from the heavens. This perception, according to the hypothesis, led to the incorporation of these encounters into myths, legends, and religious texts. One of the core tenets of the Paleocontact hypothesis is the belief that certain ancient structures and artifacts demonstrate a level of engineering or scientific knowledge that was seemingly beyond the capabilities of the cultures that created them. These anomalies, as they are seen by proponents, are not easily explained by conventional historical and archaeological frameworks. For instance, the precise cutting and fitting of massive stone blocks in sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia, or the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza with its astronomical alignments, are often cited. The argument is that such feats would have required tools, techniques, or knowledge that ancient humans supposedly did not possess. The hypothesis suggests that the extraterrestrial visitors either provided direct assistance in building these structures, or they shared advanced construction methods and scientific principles with early humans. Another key aspect involves the interpretation of ancient myths and religious texts. Many cultures worldwide possess stories of gods or divine beings who descended from the sky, interacted with humanity, and sometimes even interbred with humans. These narratives often describe these beings as possessing extraordinary powers, superior knowledge, and the ability to travel through the air. Proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis interpret these stories not as mere allegory or superstition, but as literal, albeit often embellished, accounts of encounters with advanced extraterrestrial beings. For example, the Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens to earth, are frequently cited. Similarly, descriptions of Vimmanas, or flying machines in ancient Indian texts, and references to celestial chariots in various other traditions are often seen as evidence of advanced technology witnessed by ancient peoples. The hypothesis also draws upon interpretations of ancient artworks and rock carvings. Proponents point to certain depictions that appear to show figures wearing what could be interpreted as helmets, spacesuits, or other advanced gear. Some rock paintings, particularly in remote areas, show figures with large, round heads, or strange apparatuses that are argued to resemble modern astronauts or spacecraft. While conventional archaeologists typically explain these as artistic conventions, symbolic representations, or masked ritual figures, Paleocontact theorists suggest they are visual records of actual encounters. Furthermore, the hypothesis touches on the idea that certain ancient knowledge, particularly in astronomy and mathematics, was too advanced for its time and must have had an external source. The example of the Dogon tribe in Mali, Africa, who possessed detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system, including the invisible companion star Sirius B, long before modern astronomy confirmed its existence, is often used to support this point. The Dogon claim this knowledge was passed down from amphibious beings called the Nommo, who came from Sirius. Paleocontact proponents interpret this as evidence of knowledge being imparted by extraterrestrial visitors. Similarly, the accurate astronomical alignments of various ancient structures and the precision of ancient calendars are sometimes attributed to alien influence or direct teaching. It is important to understand what the Paleocontact hypothesis does not typically claim. It generally does not assert that all human development was due to aliens, nor does it necessarily argue for ongoing current alien presence on Earth in the same way modern ufology might. Instead, it focuses on specific periods in deep antiquity and specific anomalies within the archaeological and mythological record. It is also distinct from broader scientific searches for extraterrestrial intelligence, such as SETI, which uses radio telescopes to listen for signals from space. SETI operates within the framework of conventional science, while the Paleocontact hypothesis is considered a fringe theory by mainstream academia, largely due to a lack of empirical, verifiable evidence that satisfies scientific standards. The core tenets can be summarized as follows. First, highly advanced extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in the distant past. Second, these visitors interacted directly with early human civilizations. Third, these interactions resulted in the transfer of knowledge, technology, or genetic influence to humanity. Fourth, the evidence for these interactions is preserved in ancient texts, myths, archaeological artifacts, and monumental structures that appear technologically or scientifically anomalous for their time. Fifth, these visitors were often perceived as divine beings by ancient peoples, shaping their religious and spiritual beliefs. Proponents suggest that without these extraterrestrial interventions, human civilization would not have progressed as rapidly, or achieved certain feats. They often argue that mainstream archaeology and history are too conservative or unwilling to consider non-terrestrial explanations, even when confronted with what they view as compelling evidence. They propose that conventional explanations for ancient wonders, such as simple tools combined with immense human labour, are insufficient to fully account for the precision, scale, or apparent advanced knowledge seen in the ancient world. The hypothesis implies a profound reinterpretation of human history, suggesting that our intellectual, technological, and even biological lineage might have an extraterrestrial component. It challenges the anthropocentric view of human development, positing that our ancestors were not isolated in their journey, but were part of a larger cosmic interaction. While fascinating, the Paleocontact hypothesis remains highly controversial. Its reliance on reinterpreting existing evidence rather than presenting new, direct and unambiguous proof, coupled with its often unfalsifiable claims, places it outside the realm of accepted scientific theory for most researchers. However, its enduring appeal lies in its attempt to explain mysteries that continue to puzzle, offering an alternative narrative for the origins of civilization and the wonders of the ancient world. It taps into the universal human curiosity about our past and our place in the vast universe. The idea that beings from other worlds might have influenced Earth or its inhabitants is not a new concept, nor did it suddenly appear with the advent of modern science fiction or the UFO phenomenon. Throughout history, long before the modern formulation of the Paleocontact hypothesis, various philosophers, writers, and religious thinkers pondered the existence of life beyond Earth and its potential interactions with humanity. Their ideas, though often embedded within specific theological or cosmological frameworks, laid intellectual groundwork for later discussions about ancient visitations or extraterrestrial influence. These early thinkers did not use terms like paleocontact or extraterrestrial intelligence in the modern sense, but their contemplation of other worlds and their inhabitants demonstrates a long-standing human curiosity about our place in a potentially populated cosmos. One of the earliest philosophical discussions about other worlds comes from ancient Greece. While their focus was often on whether other planets or stars could host life, some of their ideas touched upon the nature of the cosmos. For example, Democritus, a pre-Socratic philosopher from the 5th century BCE, was a proponent of atomism, the idea that the universe is composed of indivisible particles. He extended this concept to argue for an infinite number of worlds, some like ours, some different, and that life could exist on many of them. While he didn't explicitly speak of visits to Earth, his vision of a multiverse teeming with potential life forms was a radical departure from geocentric and anthropocentric views prevalent at the time. Plato, another influential Greek philosopher, in his work Timaeus, discussed the creation of the cosmos and living beings. While not directly about alien visitations, his concept of a divine craftsman or demiurge who created the world and arranged the stars and planets could be seen as an early form of external intelligence influencing Earth's beginnings. This idea of intelligent, non-human architects of the cosmos resonated through subsequent philosophical and religious thought. In the Roman world, thinkers like Lucretius, a poet and philosopher of the 1st century BCE, followed Democritus's atomic theory. In his epic poem De Rerum Natura, on the nature of things, Lucretius argued against the idea that Earth was unique or specially created for humans. He suggested that if the universe contains an infinite number of atoms, then it must also contain an infinite number of worlds, and it would be absurd to think that only Earth hosted life. While he did not propose direct visitation, his writings contributed to the intellectual climate that allowed for the contemplation of a populated universe. During the Middle Ages, the dominant worldview in Europe was shaped by Christian theology, which often emphasized Earth's unique status as the center of creation. However, even within this framework, questions about other worlds occasionally arose. The concept of God's omnipotence led some scholastic philosophers to ponder if God could have created other worlds, even if they were not explicitly mentioned in Scripture. Nicholas of Cusa, a 15th century German cardinal and philosopher, was a notable exception to the geocentric orthodoxy. He suggested that the Earth was not the center of the universe, and that other celestial bodies might also be inhabited. He wrote, "There is no star about which we can say that it is not possibly inhabited." He believed that life in other worlds might be different from human life, adapted to their specific celestial conditions. While not about direct ancient contact, Cusa's ideas were a significant step in breaking down the anthropocentric view of the cosmos. The Renaissance and the scientific revolution marked a major turning point. The Copernican revolution, which placed the Sun, not the Earth, at the center of the solar system, profoundly altered humanity's cosmic perspective. This shift encouraged bolder speculation about other inhabited worlds. Giordano Bruno, an Italian philosopher burned at the stake in 1600, was a fervent advocate for an infinite universe containing an infinite number of inhabited worlds. He extended the Copernican model to argue for an infinite cosmos filled with other stars, each potentially with its own planets and intelligent beings. Bruno's ideas were far ahead of his time and directly challenged prevailing theological dogmas. While his writings did not focus on ancient visitations, his radical assertion of a populated infinite universe was a crucial conceptual precursor. Following the invention of the telescope in the early 17th century, the heavens opened up to direct observation, albeit limited. Galileo Galilei's observations of the Moon's craters and Jupiter's moons demonstrated that other celestial bodies were not perfect, unblemished spheres, but worlds with their own features just like Earth. This strengthened the idea that other planets could indeed be inhabited. Figures like Johannes Kepler, the astronomer, even speculated about lunar inhabitants based on his telescopic observations. The 17th and 18th centuries saw a flourishing of philosophical and literary works speculating about extraterrestrial life. Bernard Le Bouvier de Fontenelle's 1686 book, Conversations on the Plurality of Worlds, popularized the idea of life on other planets for a wide audience. He discussed what life might be like on the Moon, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn, arguing that it was logical for God to populate these worlds just as he populated Earth. While charming and speculative, these works continued to normalize the concept of a cosmos teeming with life. Even Enlightenment philosophers like Immanuel Kant, in his 1755 work Universal Natural History and Theory of the Heavens, discussed the possibility of inhabitants on other planets. Kant speculated that the inhabitants of planets farther from the Sun would be more intelligent, while those closer would be less developed. He did not explicitly propose ancient visitations to Earth, but his detailed philosophical exploration of other worlds and their potential inhabitants contributed to a broader cosmic consciousness. In the realm of literature, early examples of what might be called proto-science fiction also emerged, hinting at visits to Earth or interactions with non-human entities. Lucian of Samosata, a satirist writing in the 2nd century CE, penned True History, a fantastical narrative that includes a journey to the moon and encounters with lunar inhabitants engaged in a war with the inhabitants of the Sun. While clearly satirical, it demonstrates an ancient imaginative capacity to conceive of life beyond Earth and interplanetary travel. Much later, in the 17th century, Johannes Kepler wrote Somnium, the Dream, a short narrative considered one of the earliest works of science fiction. It describes a journey to the moon and how its inhabitants perceive Earth. While these works were fictional, they illustrate a continuous human fascination with the idea of other worlds and the possibilities of travel between them. Religious texts and ancient myths themselves, while not philosophical treatises on extraterrestrial life, contain elements that have later been reinterpreted by Paleocontact proponents. The biblical prophet Ezekiel's vision of a wheel within a wheel and a fiery whirlwind from the north, for instance, has been interpreted by some as a description of an ancient flying craft. Similarly, the descriptions of gods descending from the sky in chariots or on clouds, found in various mythologies, have been seen as proto-accounts of alien arrivals. These were not direct Paleocontact theories, but the raw material for later reinterpretation. The modern ancient astronaut idea, as popularized in the 20th century by writers like Erich von Däniken, drew heavily on these existing cultural narratives and scientific anomalies. However, the intellectual journey towards contemplating ancient alien visits began much earlier, rooted in philosophical debates about the plurality of worlds, astronomical discoveries that challenged Earth's unique status, and imaginative literature that dared to envision journeys beyond our planet. These early thinkers, by expanding the intellectual horizons beyond an Earth-centric view, and by questioning conventional understandings of creation and human origins, unknowingly laid some of the conceptual groundwork for what would much later become the Paleocontact hypothesis. They fostered a mindset where the idea of contact with beings from elsewhere, even in the distant past, could be conceived and debated, moving from purely philosophical speculation to a more concrete, albeit still theoretical, consideration. Forbidden archaeology is a term often used to describe archaeological finds and interpretations that challenge or contradict established mainstream views of human history and technological development. These finds are considered forbidden, not because they are literally banned, but because their implications are so revolutionary that they are often dismissed, marginalized, or explained away by the dominant scientific community. The term generally applies to discoveries that suggest human presence or advanced capabilities far earlier than conventionally accepted, or that hint at unknown civilizations or external influences. It delves into the anomalies that seem to disrupt the standard timeline of human evolution and technological progress. One of the most frequently cited examples in forbidden archaeology concerns evidence of human or human-like activity in geological layers that are millions of years old. Conventional archaeology and paleoanthropology place the emergence of anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, in Africa around 300,000 years ago, with the development of complex tool cultures occurring much later. The idea of human ancestors using tools or leaving behind artifacts millions of years ago, alongside creatures like dinosaurs, directly contradicts this established timeline. Consider the Coso artifact. Discovered in 1961 near Olancha, California, this object was found embedded in what appears to be a geode. When cut open, it revealed a perfectly circular ceramic cylinder, resembling a spark plug. The rock formation it was found in is estimated to be around 500,000 years old. Mainstream geological explanations suggest the geode formation process could have encased a relatively modern artifact, perhaps a discarded spark plug from the early 20th century, in a hard crust that resembles a geode, leading to a misinterpretation of its true age. However, Proponents of forbidden archaeology argue that its deep embedding within such an ancient geological context suggests it might be an artifact of an unknown, highly advanced civilization from hundreds of thousands of years ago, far before humans were thought to possess such technology. The exact circumstances of its discovery and its true geological context are debated, making it a classic example of an anomaly that resists easy classification. Another compelling case comes from various reports of what are sometimes called out-of-place footprints. For instance, in the Paluxy Riverbed in Texas, alongside dinosaur footprints estimated to be around 113 million years old, some researchers claim to have found human-like footprints. If these are genuinely human footprints, it would imply that humans or hominins walked alongside dinosaurs during the Cretaceous period, a notion completely at odds with the paleontological record. Mainstream geology and paleontology generally explain these prints as erosional features, distortions of dinosaur footprints, or misinterpretations of natural rock formations. Detailed scientific studies have often concluded that the human prints are either partial dinosaur tracks, geological anomalies, or forgeries. However, the controversy persists, and for those who champion forbidden archaeology, these tracks represent direct evidence of an anachronistic human presence. Reports of metallic spheres or objects found in ancient coal seams also fall into this category. Coal is formed over millions of years from compressed plant matter. If an artifact is found deeply embedded within a coal seam, it implies the object was present when the coal was forming. In Klerksdorp, South Africa, various small grooved metallic spheres have been discovered in pyrophyllite deposits, a mineral that formed around 2.8 billion years ago. While geologists identify them as naturally occurring concretions, formed through geological processes where minerals accumulate around a nucleus, proponents argue that their spherical shape and precise grooves suggest artificial manufacture. The debate revolves around whether their geometric perfection is a result of natural processes or intelligent design, highlighting the difficulty in distinguishing between complex natural formations and highly ancient artifacts. The discovery of gold chains, intricate metal vessels, or other manufactured items deeply embedded in supposedly ancient rock strata has also fueled discussions of forbidden archaeology. An instance often cited is a small gold chain reportedly found in coal from Illinois in the 19th century. If true, this would place advanced metallurgy hundreds of millions of years ago. However, such claims often lack rigorous scientific documentation, are based on anecdotal evidence, or turn out to be the result of a modern object falling into a crack or fissure in the rock. The challenge for forbidden archaeology is often the lack of reproducible evidence under controlled scientific conditions. One of the foundational aspects of forbidden archaeology also involves a re-evaluation of the age of certain established archaeological sites. The site of Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey is a powerful example, though it is now largely accepted by mainstream archaeology. Discovered in the mid-1990s, this site consists of massive carved stone pillars arranged in circles dating back over 11,600 years. This predates the invention of agriculture and settled life, pushing back the timeline for monumental architecture and complex social organization by thousands of years. Before Göbekli Tepe, it was widely believed that complex societies and monumental building only arose after the agricultural revolution. Göbekli Tepe forces a complete rethinking of how and when civilization began, demonstrating that hunter-gatherer societies were far more sophisticated than previously imagined. While it is now integrated into mainstream understanding, its initial discovery challenged paradigms in a way that resonates with the core arguments of forbidden archaeology. Similarly, there are ongoing debates about the true age of the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid in Egypt. While the accepted academic consensus places the Sphinx's construction around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, some geologists and alternative researchers propose that the erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body, particularly the vertical weathering patterns, are more consistent with prolonged exposure to heavy rainfall, which last occurred in the Sahara Desert thousands of years before the accepted date of construction. This would push the Sphinx's age back to perhaps 7,000 to 10,000 BCE, suggesting a much older, unknown civilization in Egypt. Mainstream Egyptologists argue that the erosion can be explained by other factors, like groundwater, wind erosion, and sand abrasion, and that there is no archaeological evidence of a civilization capable of building the Sphinx at such an early date. This disagreement highlights how differing interpretations of geological or archaeological data can lead to vastly different conclusions about ancient history. The concept of out-of-place artifacts, or ooparts, is central to forbidden archaeology. These are individual objects that seem to be technologically too advanced or chronologically too early for the period in which they were found. For example, reports of finely crafted screws or intricate metalwork found in ancient deposits challenge the idea of a gradual progression of technology. The mechanisms of fossilization or geological processes are often slow, requiring millions of years for certain formations. If a clearly manufactured object is found embedded within such a formation, it creates a significant chronological puzzle. However, often these claims are based on anecdotal accounts, a lack of precise dating for the surrounding matrix, or misidentification of naturally occurring formations. The dismissal of forbidden archaeology by mainstream science is rooted in the scientific method's reliance on reproducible evidence, testable hypotheses, and adherence to established physical laws and evolutionary timelines. Anomalous finds, when thoroughly investigated, are often reclassified as natural formations, misidentified objects, or even hoaxes. The burden of proof for extraordinary claims is very high. For an artifact to truly overturn established paradigms, it would need to be unambiguously identified as artificial, reliably dated to an anomalous period by multiple independent methods, and found in a secure geological context that rules out contamination or later intrusion. Such definitive evidence has, to date, not been presented in a way that convinces the majority of the scientific community. The resistance to some forbidden archaeology claims also stems from the sheer implications. If humans or human-like beings possessed advanced technology millions of years ago, or if civilizations thrived tens of thousands of years before Sumer, it would require a complete rewriting of textbooks across multiple disciplines, from anthropology and archaeology to geology and biology. This level of paradigm shift requires overwhelming and undeniable evidence. Despite the skepticism, the pursuit of forbidden archaeology highlights a crucial aspect of scientific inquiry: the challenge of anomalies. Science progresses not just by confirming existing theories, but also by carefully examining and, if necessary, integrating new data that contradicts previous understanding. While many claims of forbidden archaeology may not meet rigorous scientific standards, they continue to serve as a reminder of the vast gaps in our knowledge of deep time and the constant potential for new discoveries to reshape our understanding of the human story. The ongoing search for the definitive answer to these historical puzzles continues to fascinate and motivate both professional researchers and amateur enthusiasts. It represents the perpetual human quest to piece together the narrative of our planet and our species, even if that narrative contains chapters that are currently unreadable or seem to contradict the known story. Unusual artifacts, often referred to as ooparts or out-of-place artifacts, are objects discovered in archaeological or geological contexts that challenge conventional understanding of human history, technology, or chronology. These artifacts appear to be technologically too advanced, or to be located in geological strata that suggest they are much older than human civilization as we know it. The term out of place highlights the discrepancy between the artifact's nature and the accepted historical or evolutionary timeline of the period it was found in. These objects spark intense debate, with some viewing them as evidence of lost civilizations, extraterrestrial influence, or a more complex human past, while others explain them through natural processes, misidentification, or miscontextualization. One of the most famous examples of an oopart is the Antikythera mechanism. Discovered in 1901 by sponge divers in a Roman shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, this intricate bronze device dates to the 1st century BCE. It is a complex astronomical calculator, consisting of a sophisticated system of meshing bronze gears. When reconstructed, it proved capable of predicting lunar and solar eclipses, the positions of the moon and the 5 known planets, and even the timing of various ancient athletic games. The level of mechanical complexity and precision engineering embodied in the Antikythera mechanism is astounding for its era. Such advanced gear trains were not seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years, making it an unprecedented technological anomaly. Mainstream scholars acknowledge its authenticity and significance, but its isolation, no other similar devices from that period have been found, leads to questions about its origin and why such advanced knowledge seemingly disappeared. It challenges the conventional view of Hellenistic technological capabilities and stands as a testament to unknown peaks of ancient engineering. Another widely discussed part is the Baghdad battery, sometimes called the Parthian battery. Discovered in 1938 during an archaeological excavation near Baghdad, Iraq, this object consists of a small clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, all sealed with bitumen. Dating to the Parthian era, roughly 250 BCE to 224 CE, its purpose is debated. Some researchers propose that it functioned as a galvanic cell, or a primitive electric battery, capable of generating a small voltage if filled with an acidic liquid like grape juice or vinegar. Experiments with replicas have shown this is plausible. If it was indeed a battery, it would suggest an understanding of electrochemistry thousands of years before its modern rediscovery, raising questions about what it was used for, perhaps for electroplating jewellery, or for some unknown ritualistic purpose. Mainstream archaeologists, however, generally interpret the object as a storage vessel for scrolls, perhaps a kind of container for sacred texts, or a ritual object, arguing that there is no other archaeological evidence to support the widespread use or understanding of electricity in ancient Mesopotamia. The ambiguity of its function keeps it firmly in the category of unusual artifacts. The Saqqara bird, discovered in 1898 in a tomb at Saqqara, Egypt, dating to around 200 BCE, is another intriguing object. It is a wooden model of a bird, roughly 6 inches long, with features that some interpret as aerodynamic, resembling a glider or an ancient aircraft. Its wings are angled slightly downwards, and it has no obvious features for propulsion, but its design is suggestive to some aviation enthusiasts. While Egyptologists identify it as a stylized falcon, perhaps a toy or a ceremonial object related to the god Horus, its unique shape has led to speculation that it might be a model of an ancient flying machine, hinting at a lost knowledge of aerodynamics. Wind tunnel tests on a replica have produced mixed results, with some suggesting it could generate lift, while others dispute its aerodynamic efficiency. The Klerksdorp spheres, found in mines near Ottosdal, South Africa, are small, metallic objects, some with parallel grooves around their equators. They are found in pyrophyllite deposits, a type of rock that is approximately 2.8 billion years old. These spheres range from 1 to 4 inches in diameter. While their appearance leads some to speculate about their artificial nature, suggesting advanced ancient technology, mainstream geological explanations identify them as naturally occurring concretions. Concretions form when minerals precipitate and bind together around a nucleus in sedimentary rock, often resulting in spherical or ovoid shapes. The grooves, according to geologists, can be explained by the natural layering of the material or by geological stress. The debate centres on whether their apparent geometric regularity and grooving are a product of natural forces or intelligent design, highlighting the challenge of distinguishing between the two in very ancient geological contexts. The Ica stones of Peru are another set of controversial parts. These are thousands of stones, purportedly discovered in a cave near Ica, Peru, many of which are engraved with images of dinosaurs, advanced medical procedures, complex maps, and astronomical phenomena. If genuine, these stones would imply human coexistence with dinosaurs, or an advanced knowledge far beyond what is conventionally attributed to ancient Peruvian cultures. However, the Ica stones are widely regarded as a modern hoax. Their provenance is questionable, and the engravings show no signs of authentic ancient weathering or patination. The primary source for the stones, a local doctor, eventually admitted to having created many of them himself. Despite being largely discredited by archaeological and geological experts, they continue to be cited in some alternative history circles as genuine parts. The Fuente Magna bowl, also known as the Rosetta Stone of the Americas, is a ceramic bowl discovered in Bolivia in 1950. It features 2 types of writing, one resembling Sumerian or Akkadian cuneiform, and another resembling a local indigenous script. If the cuneiform inscriptions are genuine and can be definitively translated as meaningful ancient Near Eastern text, it would suggest contact between ancient Mesopotamian civilizations and pre-Columbian South American cultures, a concept currently not supported by mainstream archaeology. However, the bowl's authenticity and the nature of its inscriptions are highly debated. Critics point to the unusual mix of scripts and the lack of proper archaeological context for its discovery. While intriguing, without stronger evidence of its provenance and confirmed linguistic analysis by experts, it remains a contested artifact. Another category of unusual artifacts involves microscopic objects. For instance, tiny, perfectly formed coils, spirals, and other microscopic objects have reportedly been found in sedimentary layers in the Ural Mountains of Russia, dating back hundreds of thousands of years. These objects, sometimes referred to as nanospirals or microcoils, are so small they can only be seen with a microscope. Some speculate they are artificial, implying microtechnology from an incredibly distant past. However, geological analysis typically attributes these to natural crystal formations or industrial debris. The lack of clear evidence of manufacture, combined with the difficulty of distinguishing natural formations at such tiny scales, means they are not accepted as artificial by the scientific community. The general scientific approach to OOPArts is one of skepticism. For an object to be considered genuinely out of place, it must satisfy several strict criteria. First, its artificial nature must be unequivocally established, ruling out natural geological or biological formations. Second, its geological or archaeological context must be thoroughly documented and verified, ensuring that it was genuinely embedded in the ancient stratum and not a modern intrusion or a misidentified surface find. Third, its dating must be precise and reproducible through multiple independent scientific methods, ruling out contamination or miscalculation. Most alleged OOPArts fail to meet these rigorous standards upon close examination. Often, the claims are based on anecdotal evidence, flawed dating methods, or a misinterpretation of natural processes. Despite the skepticism, the fascination with unusual artifacts persists because they tap into a universal human desire to uncover hidden truths about our past and to imagine possibilities beyond our current understanding. They serve as a reminder that the archaeological record is incomplete, and new discoveries constantly refine our understanding of history. While many OOPArts may ultimately be explained by conventional means, they highlight the enduring puzzles within the ancient world and the continuous quest for knowledge about the true extent of ancient human capabilities and the full story of our planet. The investigation of these anomalies, whether they lead to revolutionary discoveries or reinforce existing paradigms, contributes to the ongoing process of scientific inquiry and our collective understanding of where we come from. Across the globe, from distant islands to vast plains, stand ancient structures built from immense stones, known as megaliths. These megalithic wonders, often dating back thousands of years before written history, pose profound questions about the ingenuity, organization, and beliefs of the societies that created them. Their sheer scale, the weight of their individual components, and the apparent lack of sophisticated tools at the time of their construction present a consistent challenge to our understanding of ancient human capabilities. Examining these structures involves delving into the methods of quarrying, transporting, and erecting stones that often weigh many tons, sometimes hundreds of tons, without the aid of modern machinery or even the wheel in many instances. Perhaps the most iconic megalithic site in Europe is Stonehenge, located in Wiltshire, England. This prehistoric monument, dating primarily from 3000 BCE to 2000 BCE, is a circular arrangement of massive upright stones. The most striking features are the large sarsen stones, some weighing up to 50 tons, standing in a horseshoe and circular formation, topped with lintel stones. Inside these are smaller blue stones weighing between 2 and 5 tons. The sarsen stones were sourced from Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles away, while the blue stones were transported from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a remarkable distance of over 140 miles. The challenge of moving the blue stones across diverse terrain, including possibly by sea and then overland, remains a subject of intense archaeological investigation and experimentation. The construction of Stonehenge would have involved an immense amount of labour and sophisticated planning. Quarrying the Sarsens likely involved using simple tools like hammerstones and wedges to break off large sections of rock. Shaping them would have required patient pounding and grinding. Transporting these huge stones, especially the 50-ton Sarsens, over uneven ground would have demanded a large workforce using sledges, ropes, and perhaps rolling logs or complex systems of levers. Experiments have shown that it is theoretically possible to move such stones with a large number of people, but the practical logistics over such distances remain daunting. Erecting the upright stones would have involved digging large pits, using ropes and levers to slowly raise the stones, and then securing them. Placing the lintels on top, sometimes over 20 feet high, would have required building elaborate scaffolding or ramp systems. The purpose of Stonehenge is widely believed to be astronomical, serving as a sophisticated calendar or observatory, aligning precisely with the solstices. This demonstrates not only engineering prowess but also advanced astronomical observation. Across the Atlantic, in the Andean regions of South America, the Inca Empire and its predecessors left behind extraordinary megalithic structures that are equally perplexing. Sites like Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu and Ollantaytambo feature walls constructed from incredibly large, irregularly shaped stones fitted together with astonishing precision. At Sacsayhuaman, located near Cusco, Peru, some of the limestone blocks weigh over 100 tons. These stones are cut with multiple angles and convex or concave surfaces, allowing them to interlock perfectly like a complex three-dimensional puzzle without the use of mortar. The joints are so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. This polygonal masonry is highly earthquake resistant, a testament to its structural integrity. The quarrying of these immense stones, often from distant locations, and their transportation up steep mountain slopes, presents a significant mystery. The Inca did not use the wheel for transport, nor did they have iron tools, relying instead on bronze, stone and copper. The prevailing theory suggests that the stones were shaped using hammerstones made of harder rock, and then painstakingly ground against each other to achieve the perfect fit. This process would have required immense time, labour, and a remarkable understanding of geometry and stone properties. The sheer scale of such an undertaking, and the consistency of the precision across vast structures, continues to prompt questions about the methods employed. On Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, in the Pacific Ocean, stands another famous collection of megalithic wonders, the colossal moai statues. These monolithic human figures, carved from volcanic tuff found at the Rano Raraku quarry, range in size, with some reaching over 30 feet in height and weighing more than 75 tons. Over 900 moai were carved, and many were transported several miles across the island to their ceremonial platforms, called ahu, located along the coastline. The Rapa Nui people, who created these statues between 1250 and 1500 CE, had a limited tool set, primarily consisting of basalt hand axes and ropes. They had no beasts of burden, no wheels, and no sophisticated lifting machinery. The methods used to transport and erect the moai remain one of the island's enduring mysteries. Ethnographic accounts and archaeological experiments suggest various possibilities, including moving the statues on sledges over log rollers, or by walking them upright using ropes and a rocking motion. Erecting them onto the ahu likely involved building ramps of earth and stone, using levers and ropes to slowly raise the statues into place. While experiments have demonstrated the theoretical possibility of these methods for smaller moai, the logistics for the larger statues and the coordinated effort required from a relatively small island population continue to be debated. The environmental impact of these massive construction projects, particularly the deforestation caused by cutting down trees for rollers and levers, is also a significant area of study. In Malta, located in the Mediterranean Sea, some of the oldest freestanding stone structures in the world can be found. Dating back to around 3600–2500 BCE, these megalithic temples such as Haga Kim, Najdra and Tarxian predate Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. They are built from huge limestone blocks, some weighing up to 20 tons. The temples feature intricate designs, including curved walls, complex layouts, and decorated altars. The people who built these temples lived in a Neolithic society, yet they managed to quarry, transport, and precisely place these enormous stones. evidence at the site suggests the use of spherical stone rollers to move the blocks. The purpose of these temples is believed to be religious, involving elaborate rituals. The engineering required to create such massive and intricately designed structures at such an early period in human history remains a testament to the sophisticated planning and organized labor of Malta's prehistoric inhabitants. Across Asia, similar megalithic traditions can be found. In Indonesia, on the island of Nias, large stone structures known as osali are found, some of which are very old. These often involve massive stone seats, tables, and monuments, reflecting a long-standing tradition of megalithic construction related to ancestral worship and social status. Though perhaps not as globally recognized as Stonehenge or the pyramids, they represent another independent development of monumental stone building by ancient cultures. The Great Pyramid of Giza, while a prime example of ancient engineering, also falls into the category of megalithic construction due to the sheer size of its stone blocks. As mentioned previously, its millions of limestone and granite blocks, weighing between 2.5 and 80 tons, were quarried and transported with incredible precision. The prevailing theories involve massive ramp systems, either straight, spiraling, or internal, and the use of sledges and large teams of workers. Despite extensive research and experimentation, the exact methods used to lift the heavier stones to great heights and place them with such accuracy remain a subject of ongoing archaeological and engineering debate. The organisational capacity required to sustain such a massive workforce for decades, providing food, shelter, and management, is itself a wonder. The questions surrounding these megalithic wonders are fundamental. How were such heavy stones moved without advanced machinery? What tools were used to cut and shape materials like granite and basalt with such precision? How was the enormous labour force organised and sustained? While archaeological experiments and research have provided plausible theories involving rollers, sledges, ramps, levers, and sheer human muscle power, the scale and consistency of the achievements often lead to lingering questions. The ingenuity of ancient peoples was undoubtedly profound, and our understanding of their methods is continually evolving with new discoveries and experimental archaeology. However, for some, the conventional explanations for these feats, involving only simple tools and brute force, still feel incomplete when faced with the precision, scale, and astronomical alignments found at many sites. These wonders serve as a constant reminder of the limits of our current knowledge about the ancient past and the remarkable, sometimes inexplicable capabilities of early human societies. They challenge us to look beyond simplistic narratives and consider the full spectrum of human potential and adaptation across vast stretches of time. The very existence of these megalithic structures forces us to continuously reevaluate our understanding of ancient technology, social organisation, and perhaps even the sources of knowledge. The ancient world, despite its perceived simplicity compared to our modern technological era, produced feats of engineering and architecture that continue to mystify and amaze. These engineering enigmas go beyond mere large-scale construction. They involve a level of precision, material manipulation, and understanding of complex principles that appear to transcend the known technological capabilities of the periods in which they were created. The questions surrounding how such precision was achieved without modern tools, steel, or advanced machinery form a distinct category of ancient puzzles, often sparking debates about lost knowledge, unique ancient methods, or even alternative explanations. One of the most striking aspects of ancient engineering enigmas is the incredible precision found in certain stonework, particularly in Egypt and the Andes. In Egypt, beyond the sheer scale of the pyramids, the accuracy of the stone cutting and placement is remarkable. The casing stones of the Great Pyramid, for instance, were reportedly polished limestone blocks fitted with extreme precision, with joints so fine that they could barely be seen. The granite blocks in the king's chamber, weighing up to 80 tons, are also cut with astonishing flatness and fitted tightly. Modern stonecutters often marvel at the straightness of cuts and the perfect angles achieved in hard granite using only copper and stone tools as traditionally assumed. Experiments by archaeologists have shown that some level of precision is achievable through painstaking labour, abrasive sands and copper saws, but the uniformity and scale of the precision across such vast structures still pose a significant challenge. The question is not just if it could be done, but how it was done so consistently and efficiently. The same level of precision, if not more, is evident in the ancient stonework of the Inca and pre-Inca cultures in the Andes, particularly at sites like Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo and Pumapunku. At Sacsayhuaman, as previously mentioned, the polygonal masonry features massive stones, sometimes weighing over 100 tons, that interlock with incredibly tight joints, often with multi-sided, irregular shapes that fit perfectly. This impossible joinery suggests an advanced understanding of geometry and stereometry, the art of solid geometry. The prevailing theory is that these stones were shaped through repeated pounding with harder stones, and then meticulously ground against each other with sand and water to achieve the perfect fit. This process would be extremely slow and labour-intensive, requiring an almost unimaginable degree of patience and skill. Critics of conventional explanations often point to the lack of chisel marks or obvious tool traces on the finished surfaces, suggesting a method different from simple pounding. The sheer precision on such a scale remains an enigma. Pumapunku, part of the Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, offers perhaps the most extreme examples of ancient precision stonework. Here, intricately cut and interlocking blocks of hard andesite and red sandstone, some weighing tens of tons, are found. What distinguishes Pumapunku are the H&I-shaped blocks, some with perfectly flat surfaces, sharp internal and external right angles, and even what appear to be drill holes and consistent grooves, as if made by machine tools. The consistency of these cuts across multiple blocks, and the creation of perfect slots and T-shaped grooves that would have interlocked with metal clamps, raises profound questions. Andesite is an extremely hard stone, notoriously difficult to work even with modern steel tools. The idea that these were shaped using basic hammerstones and manual abrasion pushes the limits of what is considered feasible for the period, around 500–1000 CE. The level of standardization in some of the cuts suggests prefabrication or modular construction, an engineering concept usually associated with much later periods. Beyond stonework, ancient water management systems also present engineering enigmas. The Roman aqueducts, while marvels of their time, are well understood. However, earlier and more mysterious systems exist. The Qanats of Persia, ancient Iran, are an example. These are complex underground tunnel systems used to transport water from aquifers in the mountains to arid plains over long distances, sometimes tens of kilometers. Dating back thousands of years, these systems involve sophisticated hydrological engineering, requiring precise gradients to allow water to flow by gravity without accumulating sediment or eroding the tunnel. Constructing and maintaining these tunnels, often through hard rock, involved specialized knowledge and techniques to ensure proper ventilation and access points. While understandable through engineering principles, the widespread adoption and consistent precision of these systems in ancient times remain impressive. The concept of lost technologies often arises when discussing these enigmas. Could ancient civilizations have possessed knowledge or tools that were subsequently lost to history? The Antikythera mechanism, as previously discussed, is a compelling piece of evidence for such lost sophistication. Its advanced gear train and astronomical predictive capabilities were unparalleled for over a millennium. Its existence implies that Hellenistic Greek engineers possessed a theoretical and practical understanding of complex mechanics that was far more advanced than generally assumed, and that this knowledge largely disappeared from the historical record. The question remains: was this an isolated genius invention, or a surviving fragment of a broader tradition of sophisticated mechanical engineering that simply did not leave other physical traces? Metallurgical anomalies also contribute to engineering enigmas. While the general progression from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age and then the Iron Age is clear, there are occasional claims of artifacts made from metals that should not have been possible for their supposed age. Reports of ancient steel, for example, before the development of true steel-making processes. While many of these claims lack scientific corroboration, the Punic daggers, found in ancient Phoenician contexts, have been analysed and shown to contain small amounts of steel like alloys, pushing back the timeline for rudimentary steel production. The Delhi iron pillar in India, dating to around 400 CE, is another famous example. This massive iron column, over 7 meters tall and weighing over 6 tons, has resisted rust for over 1600 years, despite being exposed to the elements. Its corrosion resistance is attributed to the high phosphorus content in the iron and a unique oxide layer that forms on its surface. While its rust-proof properties are now understood through metallurgical analysis, the ability of ancient Indian blacksmiths to produce such a large, pure iron object with specific properties at that time is an impressive feat of ancient metallurgy. The precision of astronomical alignments in ancient structures also hints at advanced engineering and observational skills. Stonehenge is a well-known example, with its alignment to the solstices. Similarly, many Egyptian temples and pyramids are oriented with remarkable accuracy to cardinal directions or specific celestial bodies. The Great Pyramid, for instance, is aligned to true north with an astonishing degree of precision, better than many modern buildings. While this could be achieved through painstaking observation of stars and the sun, it requires a sophisticated understanding of practical astronomy and highly accurate surveying techniques for its implementation on such a large scale. The challenge in understanding these engineering enigmas lies in the gap between our assumptions about ancient technology and the physical evidence left behind. Conventional archaeological explanations generally emphasize simple tools, vast human labor, ingenious application of basic physics, levers, ramps, rollers, and generations of accumulated empirical knowledge. Experimental archaeology has successfully replicated many ancient construction feats on a smaller scale, demonstrating the plausibility of these methods. However, the sheer scale, consistency, and precision across vast sites, especially for extremely hard materials like granite and andesite, still leave many questions unanswered to the satisfaction of all observers. For those who lean towards alternative explanations, these enigmas suggest a more complex picture. They might hint at lost knowledge. Perhaps ancient civilizations possessed specific techniques, tools, or understanding that were either lost through societal collapse, natural disasters, or simply not passed down through generations. The Antikythera mechanism is a strong case for this. External influence. Some propose that the engineering capabilities were too advanced for a purely indigenous development, and might have been introduced or aided by an external source, which could be an unknown advanced human civilization, or, for proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, extraterrestrial visitors. Misunderstood materials are tools. We might be underestimating the capabilities of ancient materials or tools, or misunderstanding how they were used in combination. Unrecognized labor techniques. The efficiency and coordination of ancient labor might have been far more sophisticated than we currently appreciate. Ultimately, these engineering enigmas serve as a powerful reminder of the remarkable achievements of ancient civilizations and the enduring mysteries of human history. They continue to inspire research, experimentation, and debate, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of ancient technology and innovation. While mainstream archaeology strives to explain these feats within the framework of known human capabilities, the exact how for many of these incredible achievements remains a compelling and open question, inviting continuous inquiry into the depths of our shared past. Across every continent and throughout human history, cultures have shared stories of powerful beings descending from the heavens. These narratives, often deeply embedded in religious traditions and foundational myths, describe figures who arrived from the sky, interacted with early humans, imparted knowledge, established laws, or even initiated civilization itself. These sky gods, or celestial visitors, are a pervasive theme in global mythology, leading some to question if these ancient tales are not merely allegorical, but rather distorted memories of actual encounters with beings from beyond Earth. The common thread in these diverse myths is the idea of a superior intelligence arriving from above, fundamentally changing the human experience. In the ancient Near East, the Sumerians, often credited with one of the earliest complex civilizations, left behind extensive cuneiform tablets describing a pantheon of gods known as the Anunnaki. These texts, dating back thousands of years, speak of beings who came down from heaven to earth. According to Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki were responsible for creating humanity, either by mixing their own essence with that of primitive beings, or by genetically manipulating existing life forms to serve them. These gods are depicted as having immense power, advanced knowledge, and the ability to travel through the skies in fireboats or flying discs. They taught humans agriculture, writing, metallurgy, and city building. The Epic of Gilgamesh, a cornerstone of Sumerian literature, involves interactions between humans and these powerful sky-dwelling deities. For proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, these detailed accounts are more than just religious metaphors. They are seen as literal historical records of extraterrestrial intervention, with the Anunnaki interpreted as advanced alien visitors. The specific descriptions of their arrival, their technological capabilities, and their interactions with humans are often highlighted as anomalous within a purely mythological framework. Ancient Egyptian mythology also features powerful deities associated with the sky. Ra, the sun god, was believed to travel across the heavens in a boat. Osiris and Isis, key figures in the Egyptian pantheon, are often described as civilizing figures who brought agriculture and laws to humanity. While not as explicit about descent as Sumerian texts, the emphasis on celestial journeys and divine origins for knowledge is prevalent. The concept of the Netru, the Egyptian term for gods, often implies beings of superior power and mysterious origin. Some alternative interpretations of Egyptian hieroglyphs and art, though highly controversial, suggest depictions of unusual flying craft or figures that resemble beings in modern protective gear. These interpretations, however, are strongly rejected by mainstream Egyptologists, who explain them within the context of religious symbolism and artistic conventions. The Indian subcontinent is another rich source of sky god narratives, particularly within the ancient Hindu texts known as the Vedas and Puranas. These scriptures, composed thousands of years ago, contain detailed descriptions of divine beings, devas, who traverse the heavens in powerful flying machines called Vimmanas. These Vimmanas are described with great specificity, including their shapes, sizes, materials, and even their propulsion systems, sometimes involving anti-gravity or mercury vortex engines. The Ramayana and Mahabharata, two epic poems, recount battles fought in the skies using these Vimmanas, with descriptions of devastating weapons that resemble modern missiles or energy beams. Indra, the king of the gods, is depicted as a powerful warrior god wielding thunderbolts, often associated with aerial battles. While these texts are primarily religious and mythological, the vivid technical descriptions of the Vimmanas have led some to propose that they are accounts of advanced aerial vehicles witnessed by ancient Indian peoples, perhaps operated by extraterrestrial visitors. The debate here is whether these descriptions are purely imaginative or based on observations of real advanced technology. In ancient Greece, the Olympian gods resided on Mount Olympus, but their origins and powers often linked them to the sky and cosmos. Zeus, the king of the gods, was associated with thunder and lightning, wielding power from the heavens. Athena was said to have sprung from Zeus's head, signifying her divine origin and wisdom. While the Greek gods were often anthropomorphic and intertwined with human affairs, their ability to appear and disappear, to travel instantaneously, and to possess knowledge far beyond human comprehension, resonates with the concept of external superior beings. The stories of Prometheus bringing fire and knowledge to humanity, though a god himself, metaphorically touch upon the idea of advanced gifts bestowed upon nascent human societies. Native American mythologies across various tribes contain numerous stories of star people, or sky beings, who came to Earth. The Hopi people, for instance, have legends of the Kashinas, spirits, or beings who came from the sky and taught them agriculture, spirituality, and the proper way of life. The Pueblo people also have similar traditions of powerful beings descending from the heavens. The Navajo tell of the Anasazi, ancient ones who possessed profound knowledge and whose disappearance remains a mystery. These narratives often emphasize the teaching role of these sky people, who shared essential survival skills and spiritual wisdom with early inhabitants of the Americas. The consistent theme of beings arriving from above and imparting crucial knowledge is a recurring motif. African myths also feature sky gods and celestial origins. The Dogon people of Mali, in particular, have a cosmology centered around the star Sirius and its invisible companion star Sirius B, which was not telescopically observed by modern astronomers until the 19th century. The Dogen claim this knowledge was passed down to them by amphibious beings called the Nommo, who came from the Sirius star system in a vessel that landed on Earth amidst a great noise and dust. They describe the Nommo as bringing advanced knowledge of the cosmos and teaching them about their place in the universe. For Paleocontact proponents, this highly specific and seemingly anachronistic astronomical knowledge of Sirius B is compelling evidence of extraterrestrial contact, as the Dogon's ancestors could not have gained this information through conventional naked eye observation. Mainstream anthropology and astronomy typically explain the Dogon's knowledge as either a recent acquisition from Western sources or a product of unique cultural interpretation of visible celestial phenomena. In ancient Chinese mythology, many deities are associated with the heavens. The Jade Emperor, the supreme deity in Taoist cosmology, resides in the celestial palace. Dragons, powerful mythical creatures, are often depicted as flying through the sky and interacting with humans, sometimes bringing rain or wisdom. Stories of immortals ascending to heaven or descending to earth also populate ancient Chinese lore. While less explicit about alien origins, the concept of a celestial hierarchy and powerful beings who govern and interact with the human realm from above is a prominent theme. The Bible and other Abrahamic religious texts also contain narratives that have been reinterpreted by proponents of Paleocontact. The Book of Ezekiel describes a vision of a wheel within a wheel and fiery beings that some have interpreted as descriptions of a complex flying craft and its occupants, the chariots of fire that took Elijah to heaven, the pillar of cloud and fire that guided the Israelites, and the presence of angels with the ability to fly or appear and disappear, have all been subject to alternative interpretations as non-human entities or advanced technology witnessed by ancient people. These interpretations, however, are not accepted by mainstream religious scholarship, which views these accounts as symbolic, miraculous, or divine interventions. The pervasive nature of these sky god myths across vastly different and often geographically isolated cultures is a key point for Paleocontact theorists. They argue that the remarkable similarities in these narratives, despite cultural variations, suggest a common origin or shared experience. The consistency of themes, beings arriving from above, possessing superior knowledge and technology, providing guidance or intervention, and being perceived as divine, is seen as more than mere coincidence or convergent cultural evolution. It is proposed that these commonalities point to actual visitations by advanced beings who interacted with multiple early human groups, and that these interactions then became encoded into the foundational myths and religions of those societies. Skeptics and mainstream scholars offer alternative explanations for the universality of sky god myths. They argue that the sky has always been a source of wonder, mystery, and power for humanity. Celestial phenomena, the sun, moon, stars, lightning, and thunder, naturally became associated with powerful deities, as these forces seem to control human fate and agricultural cycles. The concept of an all-powerful creator or benevolent guide naturally placed these figures in the heavens. Furthermore, common human psychological and social needs, such as the desire for explanations for natural phenomena, the need for moral codes, and the awe inspired by the unknown, could independently lead to similar mythological constructs across different cultures. Cultural diffusion, where stories and ideas spread from one group to another, also plays a role in explaining similarities, though it struggles to account for truly independent developments in isolated regions. Despite the differing interpretations, the enduring presence of sky god myths highlights a fundamental human fascination with the heavens and the possibility of life beyond our planet. These stories, whether literal or symbolic, reflect an ancient human curiosity about our origins, the source of knowledge, and the ultimate forces that shape our existence. For Paleocontact proponents, these myths are a valuable, albeit coded, historical record, offering tantalizing clues to a time when humanity was not alone on Earth, and when visitors from the stars may have walked among us, sharing their wisdom and forever altering the course of human development. The debate continues, fueled by the rich tapestry of global mythology and the persistent questions about humanity's earliest chapters. Among the most widespread and enduring narratives in human mythology are those describing a great flood, a cataclysmic deluge that wiped out almost all life on Earth. These global flood stories, found in cultures across every continent, from ancient Mesopotamia to indigenous American tribes, present a compelling pattern that has long puzzled scholars and continues to be a point of fascination. While often interpreted as religious allegories or reflections of localized historical floods, their pervasive presence and remarkable similarities have led some to consider alternative interpretations, including how they might fit within the Paleocontact framework. The most famous flood narrative comes from the ancient Near East, specifically the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, which predates the biblical account of Noah's Ark. In the Gilgamesh epic, the hero Utnapishtim is warned by the god Ea of an impending flood intended to destroy humanity. He's instructed to build a large boat, save his family, and 2 of every living creature. The flood lasts for days, covering the land, and only Utnapishtim and those on his boat survive. After the waters recede, he sends out birds to find dry land. This story bears striking resemblances to the later biblical account, suggesting a common ancient Near Eastern origin for the narrative. The biblical account in Genesis describes Noah being divinely instructed to build an ark to save his family and pairs of all animals from a global flood sent by God as a judgment on humanity. After the flood, a rainbow appears as a covenant. Both narratives emphasize divine intervention, a chosen survivor, the building of a vessel, and the near-total destruction of life. Moving to the Americas, numerous indigenous cultures possess flood myths. The Inca people of Peru tell of a time when the world was covered by water, and only a few people survived on mountaintops or in boats. The Maya of Mesoamerica have flood myths in texts like the Popol Vuh, describing a great flood that cleansed the world. In North America, the native tribes like the Cherokee, Ojibwe, and Delaware all have variations of a great flood, often involving a lone survivor who rebuilds humanity, sometimes aided by animals. These American flood myths often feature a benevolent creator or spirit who warns humanity, or a trickster figure who helps survivors. The details vary, but the central theme of a worldwide inundation and the survival of a select few is remarkably consistent. In Asia, flood myths are also prominent. Chinese mythology speaks of a great flood that lasted for generations, with the hero Yu the Great eventually controlling the waters through extraordinary engineering feats, rather than through a boat. In India, the Matsya Purana, an ancient Hindu text, describes the god Vishnu appearing as a fish, Matsya to Manu, warning him of a coming flood and instructing him to build a large boat to save all living beings. This narrative, like the Mesopotamian and biblical accounts, involves a divine warning and a vessel for salvation. The similarities across these geographically distant cultures are striking, leading to the question of whether they derive from a common ancestral memory or independent origins. Oceania also has a rich tradition of flood myths. The indigenous peoples of Australia have stories of a great flood that reshaped the landscape. In Polynesia, legends of catastrophic floods that covered islands are common. The Maori of New Zealand, for example, tell of a time when the world was submerged, and only a few survived on mountain peaks. These island nations, inherently vulnerable to sea level changes and tsunamis, might have had experiences that naturally lent themselves to flood narratives. Theories explaining the widespread nature of these flood stories generally fall into 2 main categories: shared historical experience or independent development. The shared historical experience theory suggests that these myths stem from a genuine, widespread, though perhaps not strictly global, catastrophic flood event that occurred in the distant past. One popular version of this theory points to the Black Sea deluge hypothesis, which posits that around 7,600 years ago, the Black Sea, then a freshwater lake, was rapidly inundated by a massive inflow of salt water from the Mediterranean Sea. This event would have caused a sudden and dramatic rise in sea levels, displacing coastal populations and creating memories of a great deluge that then diffused through oral traditions. While this provides a plausible explanation for some flood myths in the Near East and Europe, it does not easily account for similar narratives found in geographically isolated regions like the Americas or Australia. The independent development theory suggests that flood myths arise independently in various cultures due to common human experiences and perceptions. Coastal populations, riverine communities, and those living in floodplains are naturally vulnerable to localized but devastating floods. These repeated experiences of powerful destructive inundations could lead to the development of mythological narratives that generalize these events into a universal catastrophe. The psychological impact of such events, the human tendency to seek explanations for natural disasters, and the development of narratives about divine judgment or environmental cleansing could all contribute to the independent emergence of similar flood stories. Furthermore, changes in sea levels at the end of the last ice age, which caused widespread coastal inundation globally, could have also contributed to the formation of these memories. Within the Paleocontact framework, global flood stories take on a different interpretation. Proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis suggest that these pervasive narratives are not merely allegories or even memories of localized floods, but rather distorted or symbolic accounts of an actual global catastrophe, witnessed or perhaps even influenced by extraterrestrial beings. The consistency of themes, divine warning, a chosen few, survival in a vessel, is interpreted as evidence of a coordinated effort or shared communication from advanced beings. For example, in the Mesopotamian and biblical accounts, the warning comes directly from a divine entity. Within the Paleocontact view, this divine entity could be an extraterrestrial visitor possessing advanced knowledge of geology and climate capable of predicting such a cataclysm. The instruction to build a vessel might not be a purely miraculous divine command, but rather practical engineering advice given by advanced beings to ensure the survival of human genetic material or a select group of individuals. The ark or boat in this context is not just a simple wooden vessel, but potentially a more advanced, enclosed habitat designed for long-term survival in extreme conditions, perhaps even a submersible craft capable of navigating the tumultuous waters. The idea that extraterrestrial beings might have intervened during a global cataclysm aligns with the broader Paleocontact hypothesis of alien involvement in human development. If these visitors were interested in nurturing or observing nascent human civilization, they might have deemed it necessary to ensure humanity's survival through a major planetary upheaval. The flood, in this interpretation, could be a natural geological or climate event, but the intervention of the gods to save a select few transforms it into an instance of ancient alien assistance. Furthermore, some Paleocontact theorists speculate that the flood was not entirely natural, but perhaps triggered or influenced by external factors, possibly even by the technology of the extraterrestrial visitors themselves, whether intentionally or accidentally. This is a more extreme interpretation, but it sometimes arises in discussions. The aftermath of the flood, with humanity starting anew, is also seen as a point where the gods might have re-established contact, providing new knowledge or guidance for the rebuilding of civilization. This aligns with the idea of sky gods imparting agricultural knowledge or teaching about construction. The challenge with interpreting flood myths through the Paleocontact lens is the lack of concrete, physical evidence to support such claims. The narratives themselves are highly symbolic and open to multiple readings. Mainstream archaeology and geology have not found definitive evidence of a single, geologically recent global flood that would correspond to the scale and timing implied by many of these myths, particularly one that would require extraterrestrial intervention. While localized floods and sea level changes are well documented, a worldwide deluge of biblical proportions is not supported by the geological record. However, the remarkable recurrence of these narratives still demands explanation. The shared human experience of a world dramatically altered by water, whether through coastal inundation, river overflows, or tsunamis, is undeniable. The psychological impact of such events, and the universal human response to disaster, could naturally lead to similar story forms. The symbolic power of water as both a life-giver and a destroyer also contributes to its prominent role in myths. Despite the conventional explanations, the persistent presence of global flood stories continues to fuel alternative interpretations. For those who explore the Paleocontact hypothesis, these narratives are not just cautionary tales or reflections of localized disasters. They are echoes of a time when the world was remade and when humanity may have received a helping hand from those who came from beyond the stars. They offer a tantalizing glimpse into a human past that might be far more interconnected with cosmic events and external influences than current mainstream history allows. The enduring mystery of why so many cultures share this singular, devastating memory remains a powerful testament to the complexity of our collective ancient heritage. Across the ancient world, civilizations demonstrated a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, far exceeding what might be expected from their seemingly rudimentary tools and technologies. This ancient astronomical knowledge, encompassing precise calendrical systems, accurate observations of celestial movements, and even apparent familiarity with distant or invisible celestial bodies, has led to profound questions about its source. How did ancient peoples, without telescopes, advanced mathematics, or modern computing, achieve such insights into the heavens? This enigma forms a crucial part of the discussion surrounding the Paleocontact hypothesis, which suggests that some of this advanced knowledge may have been imparted by external non-human sources. One of the most compelling examples of ancient astronomical sophistication comes from the Maya civilization of Mesoamerica. The Maya developed an extraordinarily complex and accurate calendar system, known as the long count calendar. This calendar was not just for tracking days, but for predicting celestial events with remarkable precision, including solar and lunar eclipses and the cycles of planets like Venus. Their astronomical observations were meticulous, carried out over centuries by specialized priest astronomers. They understood the concept of zero, a mathematical innovation crucial for their calculations, and their mathematical system was vigesimal, based on the number 20. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan books, contains detailed astronomical tables, including highly accurate calculations for the Venus cycle, that deviate by only a tiny fraction from modern measurements over thousands of years. The precision of their astronomical knowledge and their ability to integrate it into a complex calendrical system is a testament to their intellectual prowess. The question arises, how did they arrive at such precision with naked eye observations alone? While long-term, dedicated observation is a plausible answer, the depth of this knowledge for some remains puzzling. Ancient Egypt also displayed impressive astronomical awareness, evident in the alignment of their monumental structures and their calendrical system. Many Egyptian temples and pyramids, most notably the Great Pyramid of Giza, are aligned with astonishing precision to cardinal directions or to specific celestial events, such as the rising of certain stars. The Egyptian civil calendar, consisting of 365 days, divided into 3 seasons of 4 months each, plus 5 epagomenal days, was one of the first solar calendars and was remarkably accurate for its time. They tracked the heliacal rising of Sirius, Sopdet, which coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, a crucial event for their agriculture. The meticulous orientation of their temples and tombs suggests not just a practical agricultural application of astronomy, but also a deep spiritual connection to the cosmos. The methods they used to achieve such precise alignments on a grand scale, without compasses or modern surveying equipment, are still subjects of active research, often involving sophisticated use of shadow casting and stellar observations. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, Babylonians and Assyrians developed advanced astronomical observation and record-keeping. The Babylonians in particular were meticulous sky watchers. They compiled extensive astronomical tables, tracking the movements of planets, the moon, and the constellations over centuries. They could predict lunar and solar eclipses and developed a sophisticated sexagesimal base 60 number system, which they used for their calculations. Their division of the circle into 360 degrees and the hour into 60 minutes and seconds are legacies of their system. They developed the zodiac and used a predictive astronomy for omens and horoscopes. While their astronomy was primarily aimed at celestial divination, their observational data was remarkably accurate. The sheer volume and detail of their long-term observations suggest a dedication to understanding the heavens that laid foundational elements for later Greek and Hellenistic astronomy. The Indian subcontinent likewise possesses a rich tradition of ancient astronomical knowledge. Early Vedic texts describe astronomical concepts, and later Indian astronomers developed sophisticated sidereal calendars, accurate calculations for planetary positions, and methods for predicting eclipses. Figures like Aryabhata in the 5th century CE proposed a heliocentric, sun-centered model of the solar system, long before Copernicus in Europe, and accurately calculated the length of the sidereal year and the Earth's circumference. While these insights emerged later than some other ancient civilizations, they indicate an independent and advanced lineage of astronomical thought. built on centuries of observation and mathematical development. Perhaps one of the most enigmatic claims of advanced astronomical knowledge relates to the Dogon people of Mali, West Africa. As mentioned previously, the Dogon possess detailed cosmological knowledge, which they claim was transmitted to them by amphibious beings called the Nomo, who came from the Sirius star system. Their oral traditions describe the existence of Sirius B, a white dwarf star that is invisible to the naked eye, and its orbital period of 50 years around Sirius A. They also speak of a third star in the Sirius system, Sirius C, which has not yet been definitively confirmed by modern astronomy. The Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B was first documented by French anthropologists in the 1930s, long before most Westerners were even aware of the white dwarf stars, and long before its orbital characteristics were precisely measured. This anomaly, how a seemingly isolated, pre-literate society could possess such specific and accurate knowledge of an invisible celestial body, is a central point for those who question conventional explanations. While skeptics propose that the Dogon may have acquired this knowledge from Western visitors in the 19th or early 20th century, or that their accounts are a result of misinterpretation, the depth and consistency of their tradition remain a fascinating puzzle for many. The purpose of this ancient astronomical knowledge was multifaceted. For many cultures, it was deeply intertwined with religion and prophecy. The movements of celestial bodies were seen as reflections of divine will or omens for earthly events. Astronomy was crucial for establishing accurate calendars, which were essential for agriculture, determining planting and harvesting seasons, and for organizing social and religious festivals. It also played a role in navigation, particularly for seafaring peoples. The construction of astronomical observatories, whether large megalithic structures like Stonehenge or specialized buildings in Mesoamerica, underscores the importance placed on celestial observation. The debate surrounding the source of this advanced knowledge is central to the Paleocontact hypothesis. Mainstream archaeology and history explain these achievements as the result of cumulative observation over many generations, painstaking record-keeping, and the development of sophisticated empirical methods. Ancient astronomers, with their clear skies and dedication, could indeed make highly accurate naked-eye observations. The development of mathematics, geometry, and rudimentary surveying techniques would have allowed them to translate these observations into practical applications like calendrical systems and architectural alignments. The emergence of specialized priestly classes or scholars who dedicated their lives to celestial study also explains the concentration of this knowledge. However, proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis propose that the sheer speed of development, the seemingly out-of-place sophistication of certain insights, like the Dogon's Sirius B knowledge, or the incredible precision achieved without obvious enabling technologies points to an external source. They suggest that extraterrestrial visitors, possessing superior scientific and technological understanding, might have imparted this knowledge to early human civilizations. This transfer could have been direct teaching, providing advanced instruments, or even leaving behind information that was later discovered and interpreted by ancient peoples. In this view, the gods who descended from the sky in myths were not merely symbolic figures, but beings who literally brought scientific wisdom from another world. For example, the Mayan calendar's incredible accuracy, especially its long count, which marks a cycle of over 5,000 years, could be seen as too precise for naked-eye observation alone, suggesting external assistance. The perfect alignment of the Great Pyramid of Giza to true north, along with its specific geographical coordinates on Earth that align with the speed of light, are sometimes cited as evidence of advanced surveying and cosmic knowledge, perhaps imparted by non-human entities. While these connections are viewed as coincidental or speculative by mainstream science, they are seen as significant by those who question conventional historical narratives. The discussion of ancient star maps also ties into this. While we have no literal maps of distant star systems drawn by ancient peoples, apart from some controversial interpretations of constellations, their understanding of constellations, planetary cycles, and the celestial sphere suggest a deep engagement with the stars as a navigational and spiritual guide. The Nebra sky disk, a Bronze Age artifact found in Germany, dating to around 1600 BCE, is interpreted as a depiction of the night sky, including the Pleiades star cluster, a crescent moon, and a sun or full moon. It is seen as one of the oldest known concrete depictions of cosmic phenomena, demonstrating an early understanding of specific stellar groupings and their significance for calendrical purposes. Ultimately, the source of ancient cultures' surprisingly sophisticated astronomical knowledge remains a topic of ongoing scholarly inquiry. While mainstream explanations focus on human ingenuity, long-term observation, and the development of empirical methods, the enduring puzzles and occasional anomalies within the archaeological and mythological record continue to fuel speculation about external influences. Whether these insights were solely born from earthly genius, or were perhaps, in some cases, sparked by knowledge from beyond our world, the deep fascination with the stars and their rhythms remains a profound and shared legacy of humanity. The precision of ancient star maps and knowledge compels us to consider the full breadth of possibilities for how our ancestors came to understand the vast cosmos surrounding them. The Nazca lines are a series of enormous geoglyphs, or designs etched into the ground, located in the arid plains of the Nazca Desert in Peru. Created by the ancient Nazca culture between 500 BCE and 500 CE, these mysterious markings cover an area of about 170 square miles and depict a wide array of figures, including animals, plants, geometric shapes, and straight lines that stretch for miles. Their immense scale and the fact that they can only be fully appreciated from an aerial perspective have made them one of the most intriguing archaeological enigmas in the world, prompting intense debate about their purpose and construction, including theories related to Paleocontact. The geoglyphs were created by removing the reddish-brown top layer of oxidized stones and dirt, exposing the lighter-coloured earth underneath. The desert climate, with its extreme dryness, high temperatures and lack of wind, has preserved the lines remarkably well for over 2,000 years. The Nazca people used simple tools and techniques. They marked out the designs using stakes, string, and perhaps small piles of stones to guide their work. They also likely scaled up smaller drawings to create the vast patterns. Despite the simplicity of the method, the precision of the lines, especially the straight ones that maintain their direction over long distances, is impressive. The figures vary widely in subject matter. There are famous animal figures such as a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, a fish, a lizard, a pelican, a dog, and a cat. Some figures are clearly anthropomorphic, resembling humanoids, while others are abstract geometric shapes like spirals, zigzags, trapezoids, and triangles. The straight lines are perhaps the most numerous and enigmatic, cutting across the landscape for many kilometers, sometimes overlapping older designs. The sheer scale of the Nazca lines is what most captivates observers. The hummingbird figure, for example, is over 300 feet long. The monkey extends over 300 feet as well with its coiled tail. Many of the trapezoids are hundreds of feet wide and over a mile long. To create such vast and intricate designs that maintain proportion and straightness over great distances, without an obvious elevated vantage point, remains a puzzle. Conventional explanations suggest that the Nazca people used basic surveying techniques, possibly by creating miniature scale models on nearby hills and then scaling them up using a grid system, or by observing from tethered hot air balloons, though no evidence for the latter exists. The remarkable accuracy of the straight lines over vast distances, however, still implies a high degree of precision and planning. The primary mystery surrounding the Nazca lines is their purpose. Why did the Nazca people expend such enormous effort to create these designs? Several theories have been proposed by archaeologists and researchers. One prominent theory suggests the lines had an astronomical or calendrical function. Maria Reicher, a German mathematician and archaeologist who dedicated her life to studying the lines, believed many of the figures and lines corresponded to celestial alignments, marking solstices, equinoxes, and the rising and setting points of specific stars or constellations. She proposed that the lines functioned as an enormous astronomical observatory or calendar, helping the Nazca track agricultural cycles and predict important celestial events. While some astronomical correlations have been identified, not all lines align perfectly with celestial events, and the sheer number and variety of lines make a singular astronomical purpose difficult to prove for all of them. Another widely accepted theory proposes that the lines were part of a ritualistic or religious landscape connected to water and fertility. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, and water was crucial for their survival and agriculture, it is suggested that the lines were processional pathways leading to ceremonial sites, or that the figures were offerings to water deities, appeals for rain, or symbols related to the subterranean water sources, aquifers, that the Nazca ingeniously tapped into. Some research suggests that certain lines point to sources of water or relate to specific agricultural rituals. The act of creating the lines themselves, with the communal effort involved, might have been a ritualistic practice in itself. Some theories also suggest the lines were clan or tribal markers, identifying specific groups or territories, or that they were part of a complex system of geoglyphic art created for religious pilgrimage routes. The figures might have represented sacred animals, mythical creatures, or symbols important to Nazca cosmology and belief systems. Within the framework of the Paleocontact hypothesis, the Nazca lines take on a radically different interpretation. The most famous proponent of this view was Erich von Däniken, who suggested in his influential 1968 book Chariots of the Gods that the Nazca lines were designed as landing strips or navigational aids for extraterrestrial spacecraft. He argued that the immense size and the fact that they are only visible from the air meant they must have been intended for aerial observation, which ancient Nazca people were incapable of. The long straight runways and the clearings he proposed could have served as landing areas for alien visitors, and the animal figures might have been signals or messages to these sky beings. The landing strip theory gained popular attention due to its sensational nature. Proponents would point to the geometric perfection of some lines and trapezoids, arguing that they resemble modern airport runways. The idea is that the Nazca people, witnessing advanced aerial vehicles, attempted to replicate what they saw or to communicate with these sky gods using a medium visible from above. The mystery of how the lines were designed without an aerial perspective is often emphasized as supporting this idea, suggesting that the designers must have had an aerial platform, either extraterrestrial or an unknown ancient technology. However, mainstream archaeology overwhelmingly rejects the extraterrestrial landing strip theory for several reasons. Firstly, the lines are relatively shallow, only a few inches deep, and would not withstand the weight or force of landing aircraft. The ground is also soft and sandy, unsuitable for heavy landings. Secondly, the figures are often intertwined and overlap, making a continuous runway impractical. Thirdly, and most importantly, extensive archaeological evidence confirms that the lines were created using simple, indigenous technology available to the Nazca people. Experimental archaeology has successfully recreated sections of the lines using stakes, string, and basic sighting techniques, demonstrating that aerial observation was not strictly necessary for their design or execution. The Nazca people could have used simple surveying methods, scaling up small models, or viewing from nearby hills. While this would have been a labour-intensive process, it was well within their capabilities. Furthermore, the focus on ritualistic and astronomical purposes for the lines is supported by abundant archaeological context, including Nazca pottery, textiles, and other cultural artifacts that depict similar figures and themes, linking them directly to Nazca religious beliefs and practices. There is no independent evidence of advanced technology or alien visitation in the Nazca culture, or wider Peruvian archaeology to support the extraterrestrial claims. Despite the strong academic counterarguments, the Paleocontact interpretation of the Nazca lines continues to capture public imagination. The visual impact of the lines, particularly when viewed from above, and the lingering questions about the full extent of ancient Nazca ingenuity, ensure their enduring enigmatic status. The Nazca lines stand as a powerful testament to the artistic and organizational capabilities of an ancient culture, who, for reasons we are still trying to fully understand, chose to create a monumental landscape art that can truly only be appreciated from a perspective they supposedly did not possess. Whether their purpose was to communicate with deities in the sky, to mark sacred pathways on Earth, or to track the movements of the cosmos, the Nazca lines remain a compelling chapter in the Book of Ancient Mysteries, continually challenging our perceptions of the past. Pumapunku is an ancient archaeological site located within the larger Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, near Lake Titicaca, at an altitude of approximately 13,000 feet above sea level. Dating to around 500 to 1000 CE, it is part of a sprawling urban centre built by the Tiwanaku civilization, a powerful pre-Inca culture that flourished in the Andean highlands. What sets Pumapunku apart and makes it an enduring engineering enigma is the extraordinary precision and intricate stonework found in its monumental ruins, which often appear to surpass the known technological capabilities attributed to ancient human civilizations. The site is characterized by massive, finely cut blocks of stone, some weighing tens of tons, which are shaped with a level of accuracy that is difficult to explain with only primitive tools. The ruins of Pumapunku consist of several large platforms and courtyards, but it is the individual stone blocks themselves that draw the most attention. These blocks are made primarily of red sandstone and a much harder igneous rock called andesite. The andesite blocks in particular exhibit remarkable features: perfectly flat surfaces, incredibly sharp internal and external right angles, and intricate repetitive geometric cuts. Many of these cuts resemble modern machine work, as if they were made with a precision saw or drill. The stones feature precise slots, grooves, and T-shaped indentations, clearly designed to interlock with other blocks or to hold metal clamps, forming a sophisticated dry masonry system without mortar. The regularity and standardization of these cuts suggest a form of mass production or prefabrication, where individual components were precisely cut to fit together perfectly, even when they were complex, multifaceted shapes. Consider the material itself. Andesite is an extremely hard volcanic rock, with a Mohs hardness similar to steel. Working such a material with the precision seen at Pumapunku would be challenging even with modern tools. For the Tiwanaku people, who are believed to possess only basic tools made of stone, bone, and limited copper alloys — bronze was not widespread in the Andes until later periods — the feat seems almost impossible. Conventional archaeological explanations suggest that the Tiwanaku people used harder stone tools, such as hammerstones made of hematite or basalt, to pound and abrade the softer parts of the stone and then meticulously ground the surfaces with abrasive sands and water to achieve the precise flatness and angles. This process would have required immense time, skill, and an incredibly large and patient workforce. The characteristic H-blocks found at Pumapunku are a prime example of this intricate stonework. These are not simple rectangular blocks, but complex, multifaceted pieces, some with perfectly uniform H-shaped grooves carved into them. The internal corners of these H-shaped cuts are often perfect 90-degree angles, which are exceptionally difficult to achieve with primitive tools that tend to create rounded corners. The uniformity across multiple H-blocks suggests a template or a highly standardized cutting process. The purpose of these H-blocks is still debated, but they appear to be interlocking components or architectural decorations. Another enigma related to the andesite blocks is the presence of what appear to be precisely drilled holes and consistent grooves. Some blocks have perfectly circular holes that seem to have been made by a rotating drill, rather than by percussion. Others exhibit long, straight, uniform grooves, as if created by a tool capable of precise linear cuts. If these were indeed drilled or grooved with mechanical precision, it would imply a level of technology far beyond what is attributed to the Tiwanaku culture. Mainstream archaeologists generally suggest that these features were created by persistent abrasion, with abrasive materials and simple hand tools, such as string drills with sand. However, the exact replication of such precision, using only these methods on hard andesite, has proven extremely challenging. The sheer weight and transportation of these massive stones also present a significant puzzle. The largest red sandstone blocks at Pumapunku weigh an estimated 130 tons, while the largest andesite blocks weigh about 40 tons. The nearest andesite quarry is approximately 6 miles away, and the red sandstone quarry is about 10 miles away. Both require crossing rough terrain. The Tiwanaku people did not use wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden for heavy transport. Archaeological theories suggest that these colossal stones were moved by large teams of people using ropes, rollers, and possibly artificial ramps built of earth. Experiments replicating such feats have shown them to be theoretically possible, with massive coordinated effort, but the sheer logistical challenge of moving hundreds of such blocks over significant distances to a high-altitude site remains a staggering accomplishment. The overall architectural design of Pumapunku also hints at advanced planning. The ruined state of the site makes it difficult to fully reconstruct its original form, but archaeological evidence suggests it was a precisely aligned and complex structure. The use of interlocking blocks and the consistency of the cutting imply that the builders had a detailed plan and a modular approach to construction. The purpose of Pumapunku is believed to have been ceremonial, likely a temple complex or a royal precinct within the larger Tiwanaku capital. Its destruction is attributed to a combination of climate change, a prolonged drought, and possibly an earthquake which toppled the intricately fitted stones. For proponents of alternative theories, particularly those aligned with the Paleocontact hypothesis, the precision and complexity of Pumapunku's stonework are seen as primary evidence for capabilities that surpass known ancient human technologies. They argue that the perfect right angles, the uniformity of cuts, the apparent drill holes, and the ability to work incredibly hard stone with such finesse point towards the use of advanced tools or methods that were either provided by, or demonstrated by, extraterrestrial visitors. The sheer difficulty of replicating such work with primitive tools leads some to suggest that the Tiwanaku people either received direct assistance or learned advanced techniques from non-human entities. The argument is that the gaps in conventional explanations are too significant to ignore. However, mainstream archaeology maintains that all evidence points to ingenious human solutions, even if the precise methods are still under investigation. They emphasize that ancient peoples were incredibly resourceful and dedicated, capable of extraordinary feats through prolonged, painstaking labor and the collective effort of entire communities. The lack of any direct, unambiguous evidence of advanced tools or extraterrestrial presence at Pumapunku, or indeed anywhere else in Tiwanaku archaeology, means that any claims of alien involvement remain purely speculative. The engineering enigma of Pumapunku, while profound, continues to be explored through the lens of human ingenuity, with researchers striving to better understand the true capabilities of our ancient Andean civilizations. The ongoing study of the site, including experimental archaeology and material analysis, aims to fully unravel the mysteries of how these incredible structures were conceived and constructed by the Tiwanaku people, showcasing their remarkable mastery of stone. Ancient Egypt is renowned for its monumental architecture, intricate hieroglyphs, and rich cultural legacy. While the pyramids and temples are widely studied, some alternative theories suggest that ancient Egyptians possessed advanced knowledge or technologies beyond what is conventionally understood, hinting at secrets that challenge mainstream historical narratives. These claims extend beyond the visible wonders, delving into interpretations of specific artifacts, mysterious texts, and purported scientific or medical understanding that seems out of place for the period. For some, these anomalies hint at a source of knowledge that was not entirely indigenous, aligning with aspects of the Paleocontact hypothesis. One of the most debated aspects of alleged advanced knowledge in ancient Egypt concerns specific hieroglyphs and carvings. The Dendera light, found in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, is a carving that depicts what some interpreters see as a large bulb-like object, similar to a Crookes tube or a light bulb, with a filament inside and a serpent-like cable leading to a base. This image is held by figures that resemble insulators. Proponents of advanced ancient technology argue that this carving represents a working electrical light source, suggesting that ancient Egyptians had knowledge of electricity. They sometimes point to the absence of soot marks inside the pyramids and tombs, which would be expected if torches or oil lamps were used for illumination during construction or decoration, as possible evidence for an unknown light source. However, mainstream Egyptologists explain the Dendera light as a purely symbolic representation from Egyptian mythology, depicting a djed pillar and a lotus flower, symbols of stability and creation respectively, with a snake emerging from the lotus, representing the divine. The absence of soot is attributed to the use of highly efficient oil lamps with wicks that produced minimal smoke, or the use of mirrors to reflect sunlight into the dark chambers, or even the possibility that much of the work was done at surface level before assembly. No actual archaeological evidence of electrical devices or related infrastructure has ever been found in Egypt. Another frequently discussed secret is the alleged presence of flying machines or aircraft in ancient Egyptian art. The Abydos helicopter hieroglyphs are carvings in the Temple of Seti Weret Abydos that appear to depict modern vehicles like a helicopter, a submarine, and perhaps a plane. These images are often cited as evidence of ancient knowledge of advanced flight, or even as direct depictions of extraterrestrial spacecraft witnessed by Egyptians. Mainstream Egyptologists, however, explain these carvings as a palimpsest, where older hieroglyphs were partially covered by plaster and then recarved with new hieroglyphs. Over time, parts of the plaster fell away, revealing remnants of the original carvings that, when combined with the newer ones, coincidentally create shapes that resemble modern machinery. This phenomenon, known as a pareidolia, is where the human mind perceives familiar patterns in random or ambiguous stimuli. The standard interpretation points out that without the plaster degradation, the individual hieroglyphs would be clearly readable and have conventional meanings related to titles and names, bearing no resemblance to modern vehicles. Beyond specific artifacts, some alternative theories suggest that the Great Pyramid of Giza itself encodes advanced scientific knowledge. For instance, some proponents claim that the pyramid's dimensions incorporate values for pi and the golden ratio with remarkable accuracy, or that its specific geographic location on Earth aligns with the speed of light. While mathematical relationships can be found within the pyramid's dimensions, many statisticians argue that such correlations can be found in numerous structures if one looks hard enough, and they are often coincidental rather than intentional, design choices reflecting advanced scientific understanding. The specific alignment with the speed of light is often dismissed as a numerological coincidence based on modern units of measurement that did not exist in ancient Egypt. Mainstream Egyptologists explain the pyramid's precision as a result of thousands of years of accumulated practical knowledge in geometry, surveying, and engineering, along with immense human labour and meticulous planning. Ancient Egyptian medicine is also sometimes highlighted as possessing mysterious advanced knowledge. While Egyptian medical papyri like the Ebers Papyrus and Edwin Smith Papyrus reveal a sophisticated understanding of anatomy, surgery and pharmacology for their time, some interpretations stretch these findings to suggest knowledge that seems anachronistic. For example, some alternative theories propose that ancient Egyptians performed complex brain surgeries or had knowledge of genetics or microbiology far beyond what is documented. While the Edwin Smith Papyrus shows remarkable surgical acumen for treating trauma, and some trepanations, drilling holes in the skull, were performed, there is no solid evidence for advanced neurological surgery or understanding of microscopic organisms. Their medical practices, while advanced for antiquity, were based on empirical observation and traditional remedies, not on a modern scientific understanding of disease. The use of electricity or advanced lighting in ancient Egypt is a recurring theme in alternative theories. The lack of soot in ancient tombs and tunnels, as mentioned earlier, is a key piece of circumstantial evidence for proponents of this idea. Without modern electrical lighting, navigating and decorating deep, dark tombs would have been challenging. However, archaeological experiments have demonstrated that a system of polished copper mirrors could effectively reflect sunlight deep into chambers, and efficient oil lamps with wicks designed to minimize smoke production were also available. The evidence for electrical technology, such as batteries, wires, or light bulbs, is completely absent from the archaeological record. The precision of Egyptian astronomical alignments, as discussed in a previous chapter, is also sometimes interpreted as evidence of external knowledge. The Great Pyramid's precise alignment to true north, for instance, is far more accurate than many modern buildings. While this could be achieved through careful observation of stars and the sun, some argue it implies a level of surveying and cosmic understanding that suggests more than just human ingenuity. However, the use of simple astronomical observation points, plumb bobs, and measuring ropes would have allowed for such precision over time. Another area of speculation concerns the origin of Egyptian civilization itself. Some alternative theories suggest that the rapid emergence of sophisticated civilization in Egypt, with its writing system, monumental architecture and complex social structures, was too sudden to be purely indigenous. They propose that this golden age was influenced or initiated by external forces, perhaps an earlier, highly advanced lost civilization like Atlantis, or even extraterrestrial visitors. Mainstream archaeology, however, traces the gradual development of Egyptian society from pre-dynastic cultures through continuous archaeological discovery, showing a clear evolution of their technologies, social organization, and cultural practices over thousands of years leading up to the dynastic period. There is no evidence of a sudden, unexplained leap in development without clear precursors. The allure of Egyptian secrets often stems from the undeniable marvel of their achievements, combined with the gaps in our current understanding of how they accomplished everything. When conventional explanations seem complex or incomplete, alternative theories offer simpler, often more dramatic narratives. However, for a claim to transition from speculation to accepted fact, it requires rigorous scientific evidence that can be independently verified and reproduced. In the case of alleged advanced technology in ancient Egypt, this definitive evidence has not been found. Mainstream Egyptology continuously uncovers new information, refining our understanding of ancient Egyptian life, beliefs, and capabilities. While much remains to be discovered, the current body of evidence indicates that the ancient Egyptians were highly intelligent, resourceful, and dedicated people who achieved extraordinary feats through centuries of accumulated knowledge, skilled craftsmanship, immense collective labor, and ingenious application of the tools and materials available to them. The secrets of Egypt, in this view, are not hidden alien technologies, but rather the profound brilliance of human ingenuity and resilience in a world very different from our own. The persistent fascination with these theories, however, highlights humanity's endless curiosity about the depths of our own history and the possibility of a past far more mysterious than we currently imagine. The civilization of Sumer emerged in Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq, around 4500 BCE. It is often regarded as the cradle of civilization, a region where many fundamental aspects of organized human society first appeared. The Sumerians developed writing, complex irrigation systems, monumental architecture, city-states, specialized labor, and organized religion in a relatively short period, leading some to question the apparent suddenness of their sophisticated culture and to speculate about external influences, particularly concerning their unique cosmology and accounts of beings known as the Anunnaki. Before the full flourishing of Sumerian civilization, there were earlier Neolithic cultures in the region, such as the Ubaid period, around 6500–4100 BCE, which laid some groundwork with early agricultural practices and village settlements. However, the transition to the full urbanized, literate, and technologically advanced Sumerian civilization during the Uruk period, around 4100–2900 BCE, appears remarkably rapid. Within a few centuries, large urban centres like Uruk grew to populations of tens of thousands, boasting impressive ziggurats, complex bureaucratic systems, and the world's first true writing system, cuneiform. This rapid development from relatively simple farming communities to highly organised city-states with advanced capabilities is what sometimes prompts questions about external factors. One of the most significant achievements of the Sumerians was the invention of cuneiform writing, around 3400 BCE. Initially pictographic, it quickly evolved into a sophisticated system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets. Cuneiform was used to record everything from economic transactions and legal codes to epic poems and religious myths. The decipherment of these thousands of clay tablets in the 19th and 20th centuries opened a window into Sumerian thought, revealing their history, daily life, and most importantly for our discussion, their unique cosmology and understanding of their gods. The Sumerian pantheon was vast, but central to their beliefs were the Anunnaki. The term Anunnaki literally means princely offspring, or those of royal blood, and refers to a group of powerful deities who were believed to govern the heavens and earth. According to Sumerian myths, these gods were responsible for the creation of the universe and humanity. They were often depicted with human-like forms but possessed immense powers, immortality, and abilities beyond human comprehension. They lived in specific cities and had distinct roles, governing aspects of life like water, air, wisdom, and war. According to Sumerian cosmological texts, particularly those that have been pieced together from various tablets, the Anunnaki came to Earth from the heavens. The god Enki, often associated with wisdom, water, and creation, is a prominent figure in many of these narratives. Accounts describe these gods working the land, establishing cities and creating humans. One famous myth, the Atrahasis epic, details how the Anunnaki, initially toiling the earth themselves, eventually found the labour too arduous. The chief gods, led by Enlil, decided to create a subservient being to perform the work. Enki and the goddess Nintu, also known as Ninhursag, used clay mixed with the blood or essence of a sacrificed god to fashion humanity. This act of creation, where humans are fashioned specifically to serve the gods, is a recurring theme. The Sumerian King List, an ancient text, also contributes to the enigma. It lists rulers of Sumer from antediluvian, pre-flood times, claiming reigns of incredibly long durations, tens of thousands of years for some kings. After a great flood, the reigns become more plausible. For some interpreters, the long reigns of the early kings suggest either a different understanding of time, or perhaps that these were not human kings but divine or semi-divine beings, possibly the Anunnaki themselves, ruling directly before transitioning power to human monarchs. Proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, most notably Zecharia Sitchin, have put forth a radical reinterpretation of these Sumerian texts. Sitchin, building on his translations of cuneiform tablets, argued that the Anunnaki were not merely mythological deities, but literal extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth from a hypothetical 12th planet in our solar system, which he called Nibiru. According to Sitchin's interpretation, these extraterrestrials arrived on Earth tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago, initially to mine for gold, which they needed for their planet's atmosphere. He claimed that when the labour became too demanding for their own species, they genetically engineered primitive hominids to create Homo sapiens, using their own DNA to serve as a slave workforce. Sitchin and others who follow his interpretation point to specific Sumerian texts that describe these gods as powerful, flying and possessing advanced technology. They interpret descriptions of gods ascending to heaven in skyboats as literal accounts of spaceships. The tales of gods creating humanity are seen as genetic engineering experiments. The long lifespans of the antediluvian kings in the King List are interpreted as the actual long lifespans of the alien Anunnaki or their immediate hybrid offspring. In this view, the Sumerians were directly taught by these extraterrestrial visitors, receiving knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, metallurgy, and agriculture, which explains their rapid leap in civilization. The ziggurats, for example, are sometimes seen as attempts to replicate alien landing platforms or as observatories built under alien guidance. However, these interpretations are largely rejected by mainstream Assyriologists, linguists, and archaeologists. The criticisms are substantial. Firstly, Sitchin's translations of Sumerian cuneiform texts are widely disputed and considered inaccurate by academic scholars. Many scholars argue that Sitchin selectively quotes texts, misinterprets Sumerian words and concepts, and imposes modern scientific ideas onto ancient religious narratives. For instance, the planet Nibiru, as described by Sitchin, is not recognized in Sumerian astronomy by academic scholars. The term is understood to refer to Jupiter, or a specific point in the sky related to the planet Mercury, not an unknown planet. Secondly, mainstream understanding of Sumerian mythology views the Anunnaki as a typical pantheon of anthropomorphic deities, similar to those found in other ancient cultures. Their abilities are seen as divine attributes, not technological ones. The creation of humanity is interpreted as a theological explanation for human existence and purpose, a common theme in origin myths, rather than a literal account of genetic manipulation. The long lifespans in the King List are seen as mythical or symbolic, common in early King Lists to establish divine legitimacy and ancient lineage. Thirdly, the archaeological record of Sumerian civilization shows a gradual development from earlier Neolithic cultures rather than a sudden unexplained appearance. While the Uruk period saw rapid urbanization, it was built upon centuries of agricultural and social development in the region. There is no archaeological evidence of advanced technology, genetic engineering facilities, or any physical traces of extraterrestrial presence in Sumerian sites. The tools and methods used for their monumental buildings and irrigation systems are consistent with human capabilities of the era, albeit requiring immense organization and labor. The debate around Sumerian origins and the Anunnaki highlights a fundamental difference in interpretation. Whether ancient myths should be read as literal historical accounts of physical events, or as symbolic religious narratives that explain the human condition and the natural world. While academic consensus firmly places the Anunnaki within the realm of mythology and sees Sumerian development as an indigenous human achievement, the compelling nature of Sitchin's narrative continues to resonate with those seeking alternative explanations for the rapid rise of one of the world's first great civilizations. The Sumerian legacy, particularly their cuneiform texts, remains a rich source of information about early human thought and belief, and for some, a tantalizing hint of a hidden history. Ancient Indian texts, particularly the Vedas and Puranas, are replete with descriptions of powerful flying machines known as Vimmanas. These descriptions, found in scriptures composed thousands of years ago, portray vehicles used by gods and sometimes by humans, capable of aerial travel, warfare, and even interplanetary journeys. For proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, these detailed accounts are not mere mythological constructs, but rather literal descriptions of observed technological vehicles, possibly operated by or inspired by extraterrestrial visitors. The debate centers on whether these ancient texts represent pure imagination or distorted memories of real advanced crafts. The term Vimana appears in various Sanskrit texts, and its meaning evolves over time. In the Rig Veda, one of the oldest Hindu scriptures, dating back to roughly 1500–1200 BCE, Vimanas are depicted as chariots of the gods, often horse-drawn or pulled by mythical birds, travelling through the sky. For instance, the Pushpaka Vimana, mentioned in the epic Ramayana, estimated to have been composed between 700 BCE and 300 CE, is described as an aerial vehicle that could fly wherever its master wished. It was originally owned by Kubera, the god of wealth, and was later stolen by Ravana, the demon king. After Rama defeated Ravana, he used the Pushpaka Vimana to return to Ayodhya with Sita and his companions. The Ramayana describes it as a self-propelling aerial car that shone like the sun and could carry a large number of people. More detailed descriptions of Vimanas appear in later Puranas and Sanskrit epics, particularly the Mahabharata, composed roughly between 400 BCE and 400 CE. The Mahabharata contains accounts of gods like Indra wielding powerful thunderbolts and engaging in aerial battles using their Vimanas. The text describes a Vimana that was strong and durable, made of light material, and equipped with iron machines, with the mechanism of an engine with an inner fire and with a steering system. Some passages are interpreted as detailing their construction, propulsion, and operation. The Samarangana Sutradhara, an 11th century text on architecture, surprisingly contains chapters dedicated to the construction and operation of Vimanas, describing them as iron machines with mercury or fire-based propulsion systems. While this text is much later than the epics, it indicates a continuous tradition of conceptualizing such flying machines. The Vaimanika Shastra, a 20th century Sanskrit text claiming to be a transcript of an ancient sage's revelations, has also been widely cited by proponents of advanced ancient Indian technology. This text purports to describe various types of Vimanas, their construction, flight principles, and even specific devices like gyroscopes and propulsion systems. However, academic Indologists and Sanskrit scholars generally regard the Vaimanika Shastra as a modern composition, dating it to the early 20th century. Its language and content do not align with genuine ancient Sanskrit texts, and its technical descriptions are often considered fanciful and scientifically unworkable by physicists and aeronautical engineers. For instance, it describes engines using mercury vortices and propulsion systems that defy known laws of physics. Therefore, while often brought into the discussion, the Vaimanika Shastra is not considered a reliable source for genuine ancient Indian knowledge of Vimanas by mainstream scholars. Despite the controversies surrounding texts like the Vaimanika Shastra, the older, genuine texts like the Vedas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata undeniably contain references to powerful flying objects. How do these descriptions fit into a conventional understanding of ancient Indian society, and how are they interpreted within the Paleocontact hypothesis? Mainstream Indology and mythological studies interpret the Vimana descriptions primarily as mythological or symbolic. They are seen as representations of divine power, the vastness of the heavens, or the imaginative capacity of ancient poets and storytellers. The flying chariots of the gods are consistent with universal mythological themes where deities possess abilities beyond human comprehension, often including travel through air. The descriptions of battles and powerful weapons are viewed as metaphors for natural forces, cosmic struggles, or epic human conflicts elevated to a divine plane. The purpose of these narratives was often to explain natural phenomena, reinforce religious beliefs, or entertain and instruct audiences, rather than to provide literal technical manuals. However, proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis offer a different perspective. They argue that the detailed and often seemingly technical descriptions of Vimmanas in genuine ancient Indian texts are too specific to be mere fantasy. They propose that these accounts are distorted but real eyewitness testimonies of advanced aerial vehicles that were observed by ancient Indians. In this view, the gods operating these Vimmanas were not divine beings, but extraterrestrial visitors with superior technology. The Vimmanas, therefore, were actual spaceships or advanced aircraft used by aliens. The specific details, like references to iron machines, inner fire, or the ability to fly at great speeds and maneuver in complex ways, are interpreted as attempts by ancient observers to describe technology they did not fully understand but clearly witnessed. The concept of thunderbolts, or energy beams used in celestial battles, is seen as descriptions of advanced weaponry. This interpretation suggests that ancient Indian civilization might have been a site of significant extraterrestrial activity or contact, which left a lasting impression on their cultural and religious narratives. The wisdom and knowledge imparted by the gods in other aspects of Indian culture, like mathematics or philosophy, are also sometimes linked to these extraterrestrial visitors. The central challenge for this Paleocontact interpretation is the complete lack of physical archaeological evidence for such advanced technology in ancient India. While impressive ancient Indian artifacts and structures exist, there are no remains of Vimmanas, no physical evidence of advanced propulsion systems, and no industrial infrastructure that would be necessary to build such machines. The texts themselves, while descriptive, often blend the fantastic with the mundane, making it difficult to distinguish between literal observations and poetic license. The historical context of the texts also places them firmly within a mythological and religious framework. Furthermore, the scientific principles implied in some descriptions, especially in the more recent and dubious texts like the Vimmanika Shastra, often violate fundamental laws of physics. This makes a literal interpretation of them as functional machines problematic from a modern scientific standpoint. Despite these criticisms, the enduring mystery of Vimmanas continues to fuel fascination. The vividness and specificity of the descriptions in ancient Indian epics are undeniable. Whether they are products of extraordinary human imagination, reflections of deeper symbolic truths, or echoes of an unrecorded interaction with advanced technology, the Vimana myths stand as a powerful testament to humanity's ancient dreams of flight and our enduring curiosity about the nature of the cosmos and the beings who might inhabit it. They serve as a compelling point of discussion for those who explore the boundaries of conventional history and consider the possibility of a past shaped by more than just human hands. South America, a continent of vast and diverse landscapes, is home to a rich tapestry of ancient cultures, each with its own unique myths and legends. Beyond the well-known monumental achievements of the Inca, Nazca, and Tiwanaku, many other indigenous traditions across the continent speak of celestial beings, powerful creators from above, or the arrival of knowledge from the stars that shaped human civilization. These narratives, passed down through generations, often explain the origins of agriculture, metallurgy, social structures, and even the very first humans, sometimes attributing these advancements to non-earthly entities. The Andes Mountains, stretching down the western spine of the continent, are particularly fertile ground for such stories. While the Inca Empire famously dominated much of this region before the Spanish conquest, their mythology built upon older traditions. The Inca revered Viracocha, a supreme creator deity, often depicted as emerging from Lake Titicaca or the ocean, but also associated with the sky. Viracocha was said to have created the sun, moon, and stars, and then humans. In some accounts, he arrived on Earth and taught humanity various skills, including agriculture and the arts, before departing across the Pacific. his return was anticipated. For some alternative theorists, the rapid appearance of sophisticated statecraft and monumental building in the Andes, seemingly with little long preparation, combined with the Viracocha myths, suggests an external influence. The idea of a benevolent civilizing deity arriving from an unknown source to teach early humans resonates with Paleocontact concepts. Further north, in what is now Colombia, the Muisca people of the high Andes, known for their elaborate gold work and the legend of El Dorado, also held beliefs about celestial origins. Their creation myths speak of Chiminigagua, a supreme being of pure light, who was the origin of everything. From this light, 2 black birds emerged, spreading light and creating the cosmos. The sun and moon were also born from this primeval light. The Muisca also had culture heroes, figures like Bochica, who arrived from the east, or from the sky in some interpretations, bringing knowledge of agriculture, weaving and moral laws to the people. He was depicted as a wise old man with a beard, a figure often associated with bringing civilization. These narratives of culture heroes descending to impart knowledge are common across many South American cultures and are often interpreted by Paleocontact proponents as veiled accounts of advanced visitors. The precious gold objects crafted by the Muisca, sometimes intricately shaped and gleaming, are also occasionally linked by alternative theorists to a fascination with luminous sky-related beings or objects. Moving towards the Amazon basin, the vastness of the rainforest concealed countless diverse indigenous groups, many with cosmologies that feature powerful celestial beings. The Disana people of the Colombian Amazon, for example, have complex myths where their ancestors originated from a cosmic egg that descended from the heavens. The first humans were brought to Earth by beings who journeyed through the sky. These sky beings often taught them how to live in harmony with nature, how to cultivate crops, and how to perform sacred rituals. The intimate connection between the sky world and the earthly realm is a pervasive theme, and the origins of key cultural practices are often traced back to these extraterrestrial or superterrestrial founders. The symbolic language of these myths often includes imagery of light, sound, and movement that can, in alternative interpretations, be likened to advanced craft. In the lowland regions and along the coasts, other ancient cultures also held similar beliefs. The people of the Valdivia culture in coastal Ecuador, one of the earliest complex pottery-producing cultures in the Americas, around 3500–1800 BCE, developed intricate ceramic figures and a settled lifestyle. While their myths are less directly preserved than the Inca or Muisca, the general pattern of early foundational cultures having stories of origins from the sky or the deep sea is a common South American pattern. The sheer scale of development from simpler societies to complex agricultural and artistic communities in relatively short periods in some of these early cultures has led to questions about the speed of cultural diffusion or the potential for external stimuli. Further south, in the vast plains of Patagonia and the Tierra del Fuego region, the myths of the Selk Nam, Yamana, and Tehuelche, peoples often speak of powerful spirits or ancestral figures who lived in the sky world and occasionally descended to Earth. These beings, often shapeshifters or giants, sometimes interacted with early humans, teaching them survival skills for the harsh environment. While these narratives are less about advanced technology and more about elemental forces and ancestral wisdom, they reinforce the widespread concept of a cosmic connection and influence from above. The persistent presence of creation myths involving sky gods, or beings descending to Earth, across such a geographically diverse continent is a key point for Paleocontact discussions. The common themes include origin of humanity. Many myths describe the creation of the first humans by celestial beings or from materials brought from the sky. This is often an act of direct intervention by powerful entities. Imparting knowledge and civilization. A recurring motif is the arrival of culture heroes or deities who teach essential skills like agriculture, metallurgy, weaving, astronomy, and social organization. These teachings are presented as gifts from above that enabled humanity to transition from a primitive state to a more developed one. The specific skills taught often align with the foundational advancements of the particular culture. For instance, in mining-rich regions, myths might emphasize the teaching of metallurgy. Advanced technology or abilities. While not always explicit in terms of modern technology, the descriptions of these sky beings often include powers that seem like advanced capabilities. They can travel vast distances quickly, appear and disappear, control natural forces, and possess knowledge far beyond human understanding. These are sometimes reinterpreted as technological feats by those looking for ancient alien visitations, leaving and promising return. Many of these celestial beings, after establishing humanity or civilization, depart, often ascending back to the heavens, sometimes with a promise to return. This departure and potential return motif is particularly compelling for alternative interpretations, suggesting a planned observation or a future interaction. One example that often captures interest, though not a specific myth but an archaeological context, is the Tiwanaku Gate of the Sun. This monolithic stone archway, adorned with carvings of a central figure, often identified as Viracocha, surrounded by winged attendants, is sometimes interpreted as a depiction of a sky god arriving or departing, with the winged figures possibly representing vehicles or attendants. The astronomical and calendrical significance encoded in its carvings also ties into the idea of advanced knowledge originating from celestial sources. Mainstream anthropological and archaeological interpretations of these myths emphasize their role in explaining the world, reinforcing social structures, and providing moral guidance. The sky has always been a powerful symbol, the source of life-giving rain, and the home of celestial bodies that govern time and seasons. It is natural for humans to project their fears, hopes, and questions onto the heavens, creating powerful narratives about divine or cosmic origins. The similarities in myths across different cultures can be explained by shared human experiences, basic psychological needs, and sometimes by diffusion of ideas through contact between groups, even over long distances. The concept of a culture hero who brings knowledge is a universal archetype that can arise independently. However, for proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, the sheer consistency of these themes across so many distinct cultures in South America is more than coincidence. They suggest that it hints at a common set of experiences that were then localized and adapted by individual cultures into their own mythologies. The celestial beings, in this view, were not metaphorical deities but actual visitors from other planets who directly intervened in human development. The knowledge they imparted allowed early South American societies to make rapid advancements in areas like agriculture, e.g. potato cultivation in the Andes, metallurgy, e.g. early gold and copper working, and complex social organization. The emphasis on teaching and guiding humanity aligns with the idea of a deliberate alien program to uplift human civilization. The challenge in proving these claims lies in the highly symbolic nature of myths and the lack of direct archaeological evidence. While intriguing, the interpretations of myths as literal accounts of alien encounters remain speculative, unsupported by the rigorous methodology of historical and archaeological science. Nevertheless, the ancient legends of South America continue to captivate, offering a glimpse into cosmologies where the line between the earthly and the celestial was blurred, and where the possibility of origins from the stars was a deeply ingrained part of the human story. These stories serve as a powerful reminder of humanity's enduring fascination with the skies above and the mysteries of our deep past. Africa, the cradle of humanity, holds an unparalleled record of early human artistic expression in the form of rock art. Spanning tens of thousands of years, from the Stone Age to more recent periods, these paintings and engravings offer a unique window into the minds, beliefs, and daily lives of ancient African peoples. While much of this art depicts animals, hunting scenes, and human activities, certain depictions stand out as unusual, sparking alternative interpretations, particularly among proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis. These unusual images include humanoid figures in strange attire, helmeted beings, or unidentifiable objects that defy easy conventional explanation. One of the most famous and intriguing collections of such rock art is found in the Tassili Naja Plateau in the Sahara Desert of Algeria. This vast area, now arid, was once a lush, fertile region. The rock art here dates from as far back as 12,000 BCE to around 100 CE, depicting a progression of climate changes and cultural shifts. Among the many images of herds of animals, daily life, and ceremonial scenes, there are depictions that have drawn particular attention for their unusual nature. The Roundhead period, roughly 9000 to 6000 BCE, at Tassili N'Ajjer is especially notable. During this period, the art features large, round-headed figures, sometimes depicted without clear facial features or with large, staring eyes. Some of these figures appear to wear what resembles helmets or elaborate headgear. One iconic image, often referred to as the Great Martian by popular writers, depicts a tall, featureless, round-headed figure in what could be interpreted as a suit. Other figures seem to float or levitate, or are shown with strange appendages, while conventional archaeological interpretations suggest these are masked shamans, ritual figures, or stylized representations of spirits and deities. Their unique appearance has led some to propose that they depict extraterrestrial beings or ancient astronauts. The argument is that the headgear, the lack of human-like faces, and the overall form are too distinct from typical human depictions to be merely symbolic or ceremonial. In the same region, other Tassili N'Ajjer carvings show what appear to be flying discs or unidentifiable objects in the sky. These are often interpreted by archaeologists as symbolic representations of celestial bodies, religious visions, or artistic renderings of natural phenomena. However, for those seeking evidence of ancient alien contact, these images are seen as literal depictions of spacecraft witnessed by ancient inhabitants of the Sahara, influencing their art and possibly their beliefs. The context of figures seemingly interacting with these objects further fuels such interpretations. Another important site for unusual rock art is the Drakensberg Mountains in South Africa, home to extensive Sandbushman rock art dating back thousands of years. While much of this art focuses on shamanistic visions, trance states, and spiritual journeys, some figures are interpreted as unusual. There are depictions of human figures with elongated bodies, strange heads, or seemingly non-human features. Some images show what appear to be flying creatures or abstract forms that have been linked to celestial phenomena. Mainstream interpretations often explain these as representations of shamans transforming into animals during trance, or depictions of spirits from the sand cosmology. The unusual forms are seen as symbolic or visionary, reflecting the altered states of consciousness experienced during rituals. However, alternative interpretations might suggest these are depictions of beings witnessed during ancient encounters, whose forms were then integrated into shamanistic visions. In the Cave of Swimmers in Egypt's Gilf Kabir Plateau, dating back to around 10,000 BCE, there are paintings of human figures seemingly swimming or floating in midair. While the conventional interpretation is that these represent people swimming in a wetter Sahara environment, or perhaps engaging in rituals, the unusual postures and context have led some to link them to concepts of weightlessness or beings capable of flight, resonating with a broader theme of non-terrestrial visitors. The chronological breadth of African rock art is also significant. Some of the oldest known art found in Namibia, Apollo 11 cave, dates back over 27,000 years, and while it mostly depicts animals, it establishes a very long tradition of artistic expression. This long history suggests that if unusual phenomena were observed, they would likely have been incorporated into artistic representations over vast periods. The interpretation of ancient rock art is inherently complex and often subjective. Archaeologists and anthropologists approach rock art within its cultural and environmental context. They study the symbols, the narratives, the tools used, and the beliefs of the societies that created the art, often drawing on ethnographic parallels with contemporary indigenous cultures. The round heads, at Tassili N'Ajjer for instance, are explained as ritual masks, ceremonial headgear, or even a form of artistic stylization, perhaps representing the spiritual essence rather than a literal depiction. The absence of clear faces might indicate anonymity or a focus on the larger form. The flying objects are interpreted as abstract celestial symbols, weather phenomena, or spiritual entities. The Paleocontact interpretation, conversely, often takes a more literal approach. It posits that the unusual figures in African rock art are not symbolic or abstract, but direct representations of extraterrestrial beings visiting Earth in antiquity. The helmets become literal helmets worn by astronauts. The suits become spacesuits. The flying objects become spaceships. This interpretation relies on the assumption that ancient artists were depicting exactly what they saw, even if it was beyond their comprehension, and that these observations were preserved in their art. The argument is that these depictions are too anomalous within their cultural context to be explained solely by conventional means. However, the main criticism of the Paleocontact interpretation is the lack of any supporting archaeological evidence beyond the art itself. There are no physical remains of spacecraft, no advanced tools, and no other artifacts that corroborate alien presence. The art, while intriguing, is subject to human interpretation, and it is easy to project modern concepts onto ancient imagery. The principle of parsimony, or Occam's razor, dictates that the simplest explanation that fits the evidence is usually the best. For mainstream archaeology, the most parsimonious explanation for unusual rock art remains rooted in human culture, symbolism, and spiritual beliefs, reflecting the rich inner lives of ancient peoples. Despite this, the powerful visual impact of certain African rock art images continues to inspire curiosity and alternative theories. They serve as a reminder that the ancient world was a place of profound spiritual and cultural complexity, where the boundaries between the real and the imagined, the earthly and the celestial were often fluid. The enduring mystery of whether these unique depictions are products of human imagination, shamanistic visions, or indeed echoes of encounters with beings from beyond our world keeps the discussion alive, inviting us to look closer at these ancient canvases for clues to a hidden past. The Dogon people, an ethnic group living in the Central Plateau region of Mali, West Africa, are known for their rich culture, complex cosmology, and distinctive architecture. However, they gained international attention in the mid-20th century due to claims about their astonishingly accurate and anachronistic astronomical knowledge, particularly concerning the Sirius star system. This knowledge, which they claim was passed down to them by beings called the Nommo, forms the core of the Dogon mystery and has become a significant point of discussion for proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis. The central question is how a seemingly isolated pre-literate culture could possess such specific details about a star system invisible to the naked eye, centuries before its modern scientific discovery. The Dogon cosmology centers around the star Sirius, which they call Sigu Tolo. Sirius A, the brightest star in the night sky, is visible globally. However, the Dogon's knowledge extends far beyond Sirius A. According to the accounts documented by French anthropologists Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen, who lived among the Dogon for decades starting in the 1930s, the Dogon described the existence of a companion star to Sirius, which they call Potolo. They asserted that Potolo is extremely small, incredibly dense, and orbits Sirius A in an elliptical path every 50 years. They also described that Potolo spins on its axis. Modern astronomy confirmed the existence of Sirius B, a white dwarf star, in 1862 through telescopic observation, and its characteristics match the Dogon's descriptions. It is indeed small, very dense, the first white dwarf discovered, and orbits Sirius A approximately every 50.1 years. Its rotation on its axis is also a known property of white dwarfs. Adding to the complexity, the Dogon also spoke of a third star in the Sirius system, which they called Emeatolo, or sorghum female star. They described it as being larger than Potolo but lighter. Modern astronomy has not yet definitively confirmed the existence of Sirius C, although some astronomers have proposed the possibility of a third, fainter companion in the Sirius system. The Dogon's cosmology further includes details about the universe's creation, the rings of Saturn, and the moons of Jupiter, all of which align with modern astronomical knowledge discovered much later than the supposed origin of the Dogon traditions. The Dogon themselves explain the source of this profound astronomical knowledge. They claim it was brought to them by amphibious beings called the Nommo. According to their myths, the Nommo were intelligent beings who came from the Sirius system in a vessel that landed on Earth amidst a great noise and a whirlwind of dust. The Nommo are described as teachers, imparting knowledge of the cosmos, the creation of the world, and social order to humanity. They taught the Dogon about their own star system, including the invisible Potolo, and were central to the Dogon's most sacred rituals and astronomical ceremonies. The Dogon's Sigu ritual, performed every 60 years, is tied to the orbital period of Potolo and the reenactment of the Nomo's arrival. The documented Dogon knowledge, particularly about Sirius B, posed a significant puzzle. How could a remote West African society, without telescopes or any apparent means of advanced astronomical observation, possess such specific and accurate information about a star that was only discovered and studied by Western science in the past 2 centuries? This discrepancy between their traditional knowledge and their presumed technological limitations is the core of the Dogon mystery. For proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B and other astronomical details is considered compelling evidence of ancient extraterrestrial contact. They argue that the only plausible explanation for such accurate and anomalous knowledge is that it was directly transmitted to the Dogon's ancestors by advanced beings from the Sirius system, the Nomo. In this view, the Dogon myths are not mere allegories, but literal accounts of an ancient alien visitation and the imparting of scientific information. The Nomo are interpreted as literal extraterrestrial beings, and their vessel as a spacecraft. This aligns with the broader Paleocontact idea that extraterrestrials influenced early human cultures by sharing advanced knowledge. However, mainstream scientific and anthropological explanations offer several counter-arguments and alternative theories for the Dogon's astronomical knowledge, largely rejecting the extraterrestrial hypothesis. One primary argument is that the Dogon may have acquired this knowledge through contact with Western visitors or astronomers in the late 19th or early 20th century, before Griaule and Dieterlen began their research in the 1930s. Missionaries, explorers, or travellers could have shared astronomical information that was then integrated into existing Dogon traditions. Critics point out that the Dogon's astronomical knowledge only became widely known through Griaule and Dieterlen's work, which itself was published in the late 1940s and 1950s. If the knowledge was truly ancient, why was it not documented earlier by other European visitors or mentioned in earlier accounts of the region? Some suggest that the Dogon, being an intelligent and observant people, could have learned quickly from such interactions and woven the new information into their traditional narratives, attributing it to their ancestral beings to maintain cultural coherence. Another point of contention concerns the nature of Griaule and Dieterlen's ethnographic work. Some critics suggest that their methodology might have inadvertently led to the overemphasis or even misinterpretation of the Dogon's knowledge. It is argued that the anthropologists might have asked leading questions, or that the Dogon informants seeking to provide satisfactory answers might have presented their traditional cosmology in a way that seemed to align with Western scientific concepts. There is also the possibility of a form of cultural feedback loop, where initial discussions about Sirius B by the anthropologists could have prompted the Dogon to elaborate on existing traditions, or even to subtly adapt them. However, Griaule and Dieterlen consistently maintained that the Dogon's knowledge was deeply ingrained in their complex rituals and traditions that predated Western contact. Furthermore, some scholars argue that the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B, while impressive, might not be as completely out of place as initially presented. They suggest that some of the Dogon's astronomical descriptions could be metaphorical or symbolic interpretations of visible celestial phenomena rather than literal scientific facts about an invisible star. For example, some of the Dogon's complex diagrams related to Sirius might be interpreted in multiple ways, and their alignment with modern scientific data might be coincidental or based on selective emphasis. However, the specificity of the orbital period and the description of the star's density are difficult to dismiss as mere metaphor. The Dogon mystery highlights the challenges of cross-cultural understanding and the interpretation of traditional knowledge through a scientific lens. While the Dogon's accounts are undeniably fascinating and present a strong anomaly, the lack of independent corroboration for ancient extraterrestrial contact, combined with plausible terrestrial explanations for the dissemination of astronomical knowledge, leads mainstream science to favour the latter. Despite the skepticism, the Dogon case remains one of the most compelling pieces of circumstantial evidence for those who explore the Paleocontact hypothesis. It forces a fundamental question. If the Dogon did not acquire this knowledge from modern Western sources, and they had no indigenous means of telescopic observation, how did they know about Sirius B? The mystery endures, compelling us to consider the full range of possibilities for how knowledge can enter human cultures, whether through slow human accumulation, serendipitous insights, cultural exchange, or, as the Dogon themselves claim, through encounters with beings from beyond the stars. The Dogon's cosmology stands as a unique and profound cultural artifact, continuing to spark debate about the true boundaries of ancient human understanding and potential external influences on its development. The Paleocontact hypothesis, which proposes that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and influenced early human civilizations, is largely dismissed by the mainstream scientific community. This skepticism is rooted in the fundamental principles of the scientific method, which demand empirical evidence, testable hypotheses, and a high burden of proof for extraordinary claims. Scientists, including archaeologists, anthropologists, astronomers, and historians, analyze the arguments and purported evidence for paleocontact and find them lacking in rigor and verifiable data. One of the primary objections from the scientific community is the lack of empirical, verifiable evidence. For a scientific hypothesis to be accepted, it must be supported by tangible, reproducible evidence that can be independently examined and confirmed. In the case of paleocontact, there are no undisputed physical artifacts of alien technology found in ancient contexts, no alien remains, no clear biological markers of genetic manipulation, and no unambiguous alien communication. The evidence presented by paleocontact proponents typically involves reinterpreting existing archaeological finds, ancient texts, and myths. Scientists argue that reinterpretations, no matter how ingenious, do not constitute new, direct evidence. For instance, while ancient structures like the Great Pyramid or Pumapunku are undoubtedly impressive, archaeologists explain them through human ingenuity, organization, and labor, even if the precise methods are still debated. There is no physical sign of non-human construction. A core principle of scientific inquiry is Occam's razor, also known as the law of parsimony. This principle states that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions is generally preferred. When explaining ancient anomalies, mainstream science seeks the simplest explanation that fits the known facts. For example, when faced with an ancient structure that appears technologically advanced, the simpler explanation is that ingenious humans, possibly through lost techniques or immense labor, built it, rather than invoking highly speculative alien intervention for which there is no direct evidence. The introduction of extraterrestrial visitors adds a layer of complexity and unsupported assumptions to the explanation. The burden of proof for extraordinary claims is another critical factor. Carl Sagan, a renowned astronomer, famously said, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." Proposing that aliens visited Earth thousands of years ago, influenced human evolution, or built ancient monuments is an extraordinary claim. To be taken seriously by the scientific community, such claims would require equally extraordinary and irrefutable evidence. The evidence typically presented by paleocontact proponents, such as ambiguous rock art, controversial translations of ancient texts, or statistical coincidences in architectural measurements, is generally considered circumstantial, open to multiple interpretations, and insufficient to meet this high burden of proof. Misinterpretation of data is a common critique levelled against paleocontact arguments. Often, ancient artifacts, texts, or symbols are taken out of their cultural and historical context and reinterpreted through a modern technological lens. For example, figures in ancient art with helmets or suits are often explained by archaeologists as ceremonial regalia, masks, or stylized representations of deities or shamans, consistent with the known cultural practices and symbolism of the time. The Dendera light is interpreted symbolically as a jed pillar and a lotus, not an electrical bulb. The Abydos helicopter hieroglyphs are explained as a palimpsest. These interpretations are based on a deep understanding of the ancient language, art conventions, and religious beliefs of the cultures in question. Paleocontact proponents, by imposing modern technological analogies onto ancient imagery, are seen as engaging in pareidolia, seeing familiar patterns in random or ambiguous stimuli, or confirmation bias, interpreting evidence in a way that confirms pre-existing beliefs. Furthermore, scientific skepticism points to the lack of replicability, and falsifiability of many paleocontact claims. A scientific hypothesis must be capable of being proven false. If no evidence can ever disprove a claim, then it falls outside the realm of science. Many paleocontact arguments rely on subjective interpretations of myths or ambiguous artifacts, making them difficult to empirically test or falsify. For instance, if a text is interpreted as an alien message, there is no independent way to verify that translation or its alien origin. Archaeologists and historians also emphasize the gradual development of human cultures. The archaeological record generally shows a progressive development of human technology, social complexity, and knowledge over millennia. While there were periods of rapid innovation, these can usually be traced back to cumulative experience, learning, and cultural diffusion. The sudden appearance of advanced knowledge, often cited for Sumer or Egypt, is countered by evidence of long preceding periods of foundational development. For example, agriculture developed over thousands of years, leading to settled life, which then enabled the rise of villages, then towns, and eventually cities and monumental architecture. This evolutionary progression, supported by extensive archaeological findings worldwide, provides a coherent narrative for human development without needing to invoke external intervention. The arguments regarding anachronistic technology are often addressed by underestimating ancient human ingenuity. Scientists argue that ancient peoples, despite lacking modern tools, were incredibly intelligent and resourceful. Through painstaking labour, trial and error, and the application of basic physics, levers, ramps, rollers, they could achieve impressive feats. Experimental archaeology has successfully replicated many ancient construction methods, demonstrating their feasibility. The precise cutting of hard stone, for example, could be achieved through the use of harder abrasive materials like quartz sand and persistent manual labour, rather than requiring machine tools. The organisational capacity to mobilise vast workforces for massive projects is also a testament to human social complexity, not necessarily alien guidance. Regarding ancient astronomical knowledge, mainstream astronomy explains its sophistication through generations of meticulous naked-eye observation and the development of sophisticated mathematical and calendrical systems. Ancient peoples, living in environments with clear skies and often dedicating specific classes of priests or scholars to celestial study, accumulated vast amounts of observational data over centuries. This allowed them to predict cycles, align structures, and develop accurate calendars, all within the bounds of human intellect and observational capabilities. The Dogen case, while intriguing, is often countered by the strong possibility of cultural diffusion from Western sources. Finally, the lack of a plausible motive or mechanism for alien intervention is often raised. If advanced extraterrestrials visited Earth, why would they leave so little unambiguous evidence? Why would their intervention be so subtle or indirect, leading to highly ambiguous interpretations rather than clear, undeniable proof? If they possessed advanced technology, why would they only share limited knowledge, or why would that knowledge then be lost? The Paleocontact hypothesis often struggles to provide a coherent narrative that explains both the alleged interventions and the subsequent disappearance of evidence or knowledge. The many phenomena cited by proponents of the Paleocontact hypothesis, while intriguing, have alternative explanations rooted in mainstream scientific disciplines such as archaeology, anthropology, geology, and history. These conventional interpretations emphasize human ingenuity, cultural development, natural processes, and the nuanced understanding of ancient symbolism, offering explanations that do not require external, non-terrestrial intervention. Examining these alternative viewpoints provides a crucial balance to the often sensational claims of ancient alien visitation. One of the most frequently cited categories of evidence for paleocontact is the presence of monumental structures and precise stonework that supposedly defy ancient human capabilities. Sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza, Sacsayhuaman, and Pumapunku are often presented as impossible feats for ancient technologies. However, archaeologists and engineers offer detailed explanations that attribute these achievements to human ingenuity, vast organizational capacity, and sophisticated understanding of basic physics. For the Egyptian pyramids, extensive research suggests the use of various ramp systems, either straight, spiralling, or internal, coupled with immense human labour using ropes, sledges, and the strategic application of water to reduce friction during stone transport. The precision of the cuts on granite and limestone can be explained by the use of harder abrasive sands like quartz, combined with copper tools that, while softer than granite, could effectively grind away material over long periods. The alignment of the pyramids to cardinal directions is attributed to meticulous astronomical observations using simple instruments like plumb bobs and star sightings. The sheer scale was achieved through highly centralized political systems capable of mobilizing tens of thousands of workers over decades, providing them with food, housing, and strict organization. Similarly, the incredibly precise polygonal masonry of Inca and pre-Inca sites like Sacsayhuaman and Pumapunku is explained by the use of harder hammer stones to pound and shape the rocks, followed by painstaking grinding with abrasive sands and water to achieve the impossibly tight fits. The irregular shapes were not accidental, but a deliberate design choice that made the structures highly earthquake-resistant. While slow and labour-intensive, experimental archaeology has demonstrated the feasibility of these methods. The lack of visible tool marks on polished surfaces is consistent with abrasive grinding rather than chiselling. The presence of precise angles and standardized cuts at Pumapunku is seen as evidence of sophisticated design and planning, possibly using templates and measuring techniques rather than machine tools. The transportation of massive stones in the Andes is explained by the use of thousands of labourers, ropes, and log rollers over purpose-built roads or ramps despite the absence of the wheel. The human capacity for sustained coordinated effort in ancient societies should not be underestimated. Another key area of contention revolves around ancient texts and myths that describe sky gods or flying machines. The Sumerian Anunnaki, Indian Vimmanas, and Native American star people are often interpreted by Paleocontact proponents as literal extraterrestrial beings or their advanced craft. However, anthropologists and religious scholars interpret these narratives as products of human imagination, cultural development, and attempts to explain the unknown. Mythologies worldwide often feature deities who reside in the heavens, as the sky is a natural source of wonder, power, and celestial phenomena: sun, moon, stars, lightning, rain. These figures personify natural forces or represent abstract concepts, providing a framework for understanding the cosmos, human origins, and moral codes. The descriptions of flying chariots or skyboats are seen as symbolic representations of divine power or the vastness of the heavens, not as literal technical drawings of spacecraft. The concept of culture heroes or gods imparting knowledge is a common human archetype, reflecting the societal process of learning and passing down crucial skills, often attributed to divine inspiration to give them authority and sacredness. For example, the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B, while remarkable, is most plausibly explained by cultural diffusion from Western sources in the early 20th century, rather than ancient alien contact, given the documented interactions and the timing of the anthropological research. The interpretation of ancient rock art is also subject to alternative explanations. The helmeted figures, or spacemen in Saharan rock art, such as at Tassili Naja, are interpreted by archaeologists as masked shamans or ritual figures, consistent with the known ceremonial practices of ancient African cultures. The large round heads or unusual body shapes are seen as artistic conventions, stylized representations, or depictions of altered states of consciousness achieved during trance rituals. The flying objects in some rock art are typically interpreted as celestial symbols, religious visions, or abstract representations of natural phenomena like meteors or comets. The human tendency for pareidolia, where the brain perceives familiar patterns in ambiguous stimuli, plays a role in these modern interpretations. These artistic expressions reflect the rich spiritual lives and symbolic systems of ancient peoples, not necessarily literal observations of alien visitors. Out-of-place artifacts, or parts, such as the Antikythera mechanism or the Baghdad battery, are also given alternative non-alien explanations. The Antikythera mechanism, while technologically advanced for its time, is now understood as a testament to Hellenistic Greek mechanical and astronomical genius, albeit an isolated example whose lineage of development is largely lost. Its components and construction are consistent with known ancient materials and techniques, albeit executed at an extraordinary level of sophistication. The Baghdad battery is largely interpreted by mainstream archaeologists as a storage vessel for scrolls or a container for ritualistic purposes, rather than an electrical device, due to the lack of corroborating evidence for widespread electrical knowledge or usage in ancient Mesopotamia. The ability of a replica to generate a small current does not confirm its ancient purpose as a battery. Similarly, other U parts often turn out to be natural geological formations, modern intrusions into older layers, or misidentified objects when subjected to rigorous scientific scrutiny. The Klerksdorp spheres, for example, are widely identified by geologists as naturally formed concretions. The argument of sudden emergence of civilizations, particularly Sumer, is countered by archaeological evidence that demonstrates a gradual, though sometimes rapid, evolution from earlier Neolithic cultures. The development of agriculture, sedentary lifestyles, and village settlements preceded the urban revolution in Mesopotamia by thousands of years. The social, economic, and technological innovations of the Uruk period, while transformative, built upon these existing foundations. The invention of writing, for instance, evolved from simpler systems of accounting and record-keeping. While impressive, this rapid development is attributed to a confluence of favourable environmental conditions, population growth, and ingenious human responses to new challenges rather than external intervention. The global prevalence of flood myths is another phenomenon often cited by paleocontact proponents as evidence of a worldwide catastrophe witnessed or influenced by aliens. However, anthropologists and geologists offer more grounded explanations. Many cultures live near rivers or coasts, making them vulnerable to devastating localized floods, tsunamis, or periods of significant sea level rise. These traumatic experiences could naturally lead to universal narratives of catastrophic deluges. The Black Sea Deluge hypothesis, for instance, suggests a rapid inundation event that could have inspired flood myths in the Near East. The common human psychological need to explain natural disasters and the use of powerful natural imagery in mythology also contributes to the independent emergence of similar flood stories across disconnected cultures. Cultural diffusion, where stories spread from one group to another, can also account for some similarities between geographically proximate narratives. In essence, alternative interpretations operate on the principle of methodological naturalism, which posits that natural phenomena are best explained by natural causes. When faced with an anomaly, the scientific approach is to first exhaust all possible natural and human-centric explanations before resorting to extraordinary claims. This involves rigorous archaeological excavation, detailed analysis of artifacts, linguistic study of ancient texts, geological dating, and anthropological understanding of human culture and belief systems. These methods often reveal that what appears to be an anomaly, from a superficial perspective, can be explained within the framework of known human capabilities and natural processes, albeit sometimes requiring a deeper and more nuanced understanding of ancient ingenuity and context. The richness and complexity of human history, when fully appreciated, often prove to be more astounding than any supernatural or extraterrestrial explanation. The most fundamental and consistently raised challenge to the Paleocontact hypothesis by the mainstream scientific community is the profound absence of definitive, irrefutable physical proof of alien visitation. Despite decades of speculation, numerous books, and popular television programs, no archaeological dig, geological survey, or scientific analysis has ever yielded concrete, unambiguous evidence that would stand up to rigorous scientific scrutiny to support the claim of ancient alien presence on Earth. This lack of verifiable empirical evidence is the primary reason why the Paleocontact hypothesis remains outside the realm of accepted scientific theory. What kind of evidence would be required to prove an ancient alien visitation? Scientists would expect to find several categories of direct, unequivocal proof. Firstly, alien artifacts themselves. This would mean finding objects of clear non-terrestrial origin, made from materials or with technologies unequivocally beyond human capabilities of any era, and dated to a period when humans could not have made them. such artifacts would need to be found in a secure archaeological context, ruling out modern contamination or misidentification. This could include remnants of spacecraft, advanced tools, propulsion systems, communication devices, or even everyday items from an alien civilization. To date, all purported out-of-place artifacts or anomalous discoveries have either been identified as natural formations, human-made objects, forgeries, or are ambiguous enough to be subject to multiple, more conventional interpretations. There has never been a single piece of technology that unequivocally points to an extraterrestrial origin. Secondly, alien biological remains or genetic markers. If extraterrestrial beings directly interacted with humanity, perhaps even interbreeding or genetically manipulating humans as some paleocontact theories suggest, there should be some biological trace. This could involve finding the remains of alien bodies, even partial ones, identifiable through DNA analysis or unique biological structures that are not terrestrial. Alternatively, it could involve discovering unmistakable alien genetic sequences embedded within human or other terrestrial DNA that cannot be explained by natural evolution or contamination. To date, all ancient human remains found fit within the known evolutionary tree of hominids, and all genetic analyses of modern humans point to an African origin and a continuous evolutionary path without any discernible alien genetic input. No non-terrestrial biological remains have ever been authenticated. Thirdly, unambiguous alien communications or records. If aliens imparted advanced knowledge, there should be direct, decipherable records of this transfer in a language or format that is clearly non-human or contains information demonstrably beyond human acquisition at the time. This could involve texts written in an alien script, blueprints for advanced technology, or detailed scientific data that could not have been derived from terrestrial observation or experimentation. While paleocontact proponents reinterpret ancient texts and symbols, these reinterpretations are highly speculative and debated, and the original texts themselves are consistently understood by linguists and historians as human creations within their cultural context, dealing with human concerns, myths, and beliefs. There are no ancient texts containing clearly non-human language or undeniable alien scientific principles. Fourthly, direct physical traces of alien activity that cannot be otherwise explained. This might include landing sites with unmistakable signs of advanced vehicles, mining operations with unusual characteristics, or geological alterations inconsistent with natural processes. While features like the Nazca lines are sometimes proposed as landing strips, their shallow depth and fragile nature, along with the lack of structural reinforcement, make them unsuitable for heavy craft. Furthermore, they are perfectly explainable as human-made geoglyphs. No geological formations or surface features on Earth have been scientifically linked to extraterrestrial technology or presence. The persistent appeal of the Paleocontact hypothesis often relies on the argument from ignorance, where a lack of a complete conventional explanation for an ancient phenomenon is taken as proof for an extraordinary one. For example, if archaeologists cannot definitively explain every detail of how the Inca precisely cut massive stones, some proponents jump to the conclusion that aliens must have provided the technology. However, an absence of a full explanation is not equivalent to evidence for an alien one. It simply means our current knowledge is incomplete and further research is required. Scientists work with the available evidence, and when gaps exist, they acknowledge them as areas for future investigation, not as opportunities to insert unproven external causes. Another key aspect of the absence of evidence is the problem of selective interpretation. Proponents of paleocontact often focus on isolated anomalies, taking them out of their broader archaeological and historical context. They highlight the unusual, while ignoring the vast majority of evidence that clearly points to indigenous human development. For instance, while a few rock art figures might be ambiguously interpreted, thousands of other rock paintings clearly depict human activities, terrestrial animals, and known cultural practices. The absence of consistently unusual or alien depictions across the entire archaeological record becomes a significant problem for the hypothesis. If aliens were truly present and influencing cultures, their impact should be far more widespread, consistent, and undeniably evident. The lack of a scientific methodology for investigation is also a critical point of skepticism. The Paleocontact hypothesis rarely presents testable predictions or methodologies that would allow it to be falsified. If any interpretation is acceptable, and any ambiguity can be filled by invoking aliens, then the hypothesis is not truly scientific. A scientific hypothesis must be able to be proven wrong. For instance, if an alien artifact were proposed, a scientific approach would involve rigorous dating, material analysis, and attempts to replicate it with known ancient technologies. If it could not be replicated and showed non-terrestrial characteristics, it would be considered strong evidence. To date, no such rigorous process has authenticated any alien artifact. Furthermore, the vastness of deep time itself works against the Paleocontact hypothesis in terms of leaving clear traces. If ancient alien visits occurred tens or hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years ago, the geological processes of erosion, subduction, and deposition would likely destroy or bury almost all evidence. However, this argument cuts both ways. If evidence is so easily destroyed, then any claims of its presence must be even more robust. The paradox is that proponents claim to find evidence despite these geological processes, yet the very evidence they cite is often ambiguous or subject to conventional explanation. If a technologically advanced civilization visited Earth, one would expect robust, enduring signs like distinctive geological scars, unique radioactive isotopes, or materials that resist decay over geological timescales, which are not found. Finally, the Fermi paradox highlights the general absence of evidence for extraterrestrial life in the universe, let alone on Earth. The paradox questions why, given the high probability of extraterrestrial life, we've observed no signs of it. If aliens visited Earth in antiquity, they would have to be an advanced civilization capable of interstellar travel. If such civilizations are common enough to have visited Earth, then why do we not detect more signs of them in the vast cosmos today? While some Paleocontact proponents argue that ancient visits resolve the paradox by showing they were here, the lack of modern evidence of their continued presence, or the traces of their ancient visits, only pushes the paradox to a different level.